Hello, Happy Valley and beyond, and everybody out there in the Goon and Ironhead audience online. You are currently tuned in to Late Lunch on 98.7 The Fox. I'm your host, Chris Buchignani. I'm here every Monday through Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. And this week I am filling in for a vacationing Keith Goon Conlon on the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show.
Big shoes to fill.
Indeed.
Literally
and figuratively. Indeed. I'm joined by Jim Galanti of the Keystone Sports Network. Jim just can't get enough of appearing on the airwaves of the Fox. And because I've got to be out at State College's Quaker Steak and Lube to join Jeff the Ironhead Byers at 2 o'clock, I'm just giving the Lube and our listeners a bonus hour of remote broadcast from out here at the home of the best wings in Happy Valley, Quaker Steak and Lube.
Bonus Chris Buchignani. It doesn't get better than that.
That many people will beg to differ, Jim. But let's just get it out of the way. I am going to rip the Band-Aid off, and I'm going to open probably this hour and the next with one of my favorite quotes, football quotes. As much as I hate to quote Woody Hayes, the former Ohio State Buckeyes coach, I also hate to talk about that Monday Night Football game last night. So let's marry the two together, Jim. There are three things that can happen when you throw the football, and two of them are bad.
And you know what's ironic here, Chris? And I've done this multiple times. I've sent you text messages after watching Saquon Barkley excel for the Eagles. And I'll send you the same text message. Hey, this Saquon guy, he's pretty good, isn't he?
Most of the time.
I didn't send you a text message after that drop pass. And it was actually... I know what Woody Hayes said, but I thought it was a great play call. He was wide open.
Really?
Yes. Just catch the ball. Just catch.
Okay, well, let's talk about
that
this
100 times. 100 times. How many balls is Saquon going to drop like that?
I understand. Yep. Let's talk about it philosophically. Chris Buchignani here with Late Lunch on 98.7 The Fox. We're live at Quaker Steak and Lube in State College, getting ready for the Goon and Ironhead show. I'm with Jim Galanti of the Keystone Sports Network, which you can hear every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, starting at 2 here on the Fox. We're talking about last night's debacle for the Philadelphia Eagles, one of the most devastating losses in a long time for Philly. Not only does it move them to 1-1 when 2-0 was in their sights, but it was Nick Foles' appreciation night. The Philly legend retiring as an Eagle, who had some great games against the Atlanta Falcons, including one in the playoffs in 2017 that ended exactly like last night's contest up until the Eagles made the stop down in their own end zone. So I don't know. There was some kind of bizarre symmetry going on there, but you say that because the play was open, and I agree with you 99 times out of 100, Saquon makes the catch, that it was a good play call.
Yes. And
here's the problem. Here are two problems. He didn't make the catch, and there's the possibility that he's not going to make the catch. And if the chance is 99% that he's going to catch it, with the 1% chance being that you're going to stop the clock, I just don't understand why you make the play call. And I will tell you, my opinion, Jim, there are times when coaches make a dumb decision and it works out, and I try to be logically consistent, and I still criticize the decision. So I feel like even if that play would have gone for a first down and ended the game, I still would have been asking, why do you take the reckless risk? But convince me I'm wrong.
Well, you mentioned that the clock stop. Very important, very relevant, except how long did it then take Atlanta to march down the field and score their touchdown?
I understand probably less than the 50 seconds that would have been left if you get 2 yards on third down and kick a field goal.
Exactly. So there's a percentage chance of that happening. Not great, but there was still that percentage chance. So when you say 99% of the time, Saquon catches the ball, and we're pulling these numbers out of the air,
sure.
99%, 95, 90, whatever it was. All I know is when I saw the play developing and I said, okay, and I look and see Saquon open, I'm thinking, this is it. This game is over. Game is over. I think before Jalen Hurts even released the ball, I'm thinking the game is over. And for him to drop the pass, and again, I'm not going to crucify Saquon for it. It was god-awful timing for him to drop the pass. And I certainly don't think he was feeling the pressure of it. He's been in these situations too many times. We've seen him at Penn State make too many big plays to think that way. But when we use numbers like 99% of the time he's going to catch that pass, I'll take my chances at that point with 99%. So I was okay with it. It was a gutsy call. I get that, but I like the gutsy call. He went to win the game, finish it right there. And like you said, he catches the ball, the game is over, and we wouldn't have this conversation we're having right now.
3 things. 2 of them are bad. So let's dig into this a little bit more deeply, because obviously the alternative is that you run the ball. The situation is that you are about you've got about 1:56 on the clock. Atlanta is out of timeouts.
Mm-hmm.
You are at 3rd and 4, and you're just outside a goal to go situation. So you can still get the first down and end the game. You don't have to get into the end zone. Why not run the ball on 3rd and 4?
I would not have a problem with it if they did. But let's say Atlanta is stacked up on the line of scrimmage to stop the run.
Let's say that.
And you get 2 yards. It's now 4th and 2. You run 40 seconds off the clock.
Correct.
And then you kick the field goal.
Now, do you kick the field goal, or at 4th and 2, do you brotherly shove it to try to get the first down, with the worst case scenario being that Atlanta gets the ball on a turnover on downs, potentially with about 1:10 left, no timeouts, and starting from their own 5-yard line instead of the 20.
But only need a field goal.
But only needing a field goal to tie. Yes.
And if you go back.
And one of the better place kickers in the league.
So if you go back to the percentages again, and I know we very randomly put it at there's a 1% chance of Saquon dropping that pass. There is a better than 1% chance that Atlanta gets the ball back, and I think gets 50, 60 yards down the field and kicks a field goal to tie it and put it into overtime. And yes, I know at that point you still haven't lost the game, but you're working with percentages here, and it's still determined by, are you successful with what you do? If you run the ball, certainly you make the 4 yards, game is over. So it becomes, what are the percentages you don't make the 4 yards running?
How do you feel about the decision to kick the field goal on for a 4th down at the end of the game? So you fail on 3rd and 4, you take the big gamble. It should pay off. It doesn't, because you and I are reluctant to say anything bad about Saquon Barkley, and certainly he was the spark that won the Green Bay game in week 1, and he did a lot to put Philly in position to be able to win that game last night, even though they did not. But at the end of the day, if you want to be the man, if you want to be Superman, you can't trip over your own cape when Lex Luthor shows up.
Hey, that's another thing in support of the decision, because I do think Saquon is Superman. I do think he's a good receiver out of the backfield for a running back. I mean, we talked about this, Chris, you and
I get it.
Before the season, before he got to the Eagles. And one of the points of this conversation with Saquon going there is always, he's a guy who could catch the ball out of the backfield. We're very confident in him. Okay, no receiver in the NFL catches 100 out of 100 that they should. It happens. That's not an excuse for him, because this was the absolute worst time for the drop. It was awful, Chris. But I don't think that's on the coach that Saquon dropped the pass at the absolute worst time possible.
Although it was the play call that set him up for even the infinitesimal chance of failure, which, you rolled the snake eyes and we saw what happened. Before we talk about anything else, I do want to go back to the decision to kick the field goal on 4th down to make it a 6-point game versus relying on your offense, trusting your offense, and trying to end the game again in a short yardage situation on 4th down. At that point, you've already stopped the clock. So your ability to weaponize time against Atlanta was mortgaged the moment you called in a passing play. You learn that Woody Hayes wisdom from Pop Warner on. about the risks of throwing the football, especially when it comes to end-of-game clock management situations. So you've rolled those dice, and then all of a sudden, when it doesn't go your way, you say, well, okay, even though we felt good enough in this situation earlier in the game to pass up points, which I thought was a mistake when the score was tied at 0-0 in the first quarter. Eagles go for it in a similar yardage situation instead of kicking the easy chip shot field goal and come up with zeros. They don't convert the fourth down. Even though you did that earlier in the game, now all of a sudden you're going to turtle up and kick the 3 and kick it back to Atlanta and give them the ball at the 20 with, I think there was about a minute 30 left on the clock at that point. You in favor of that, or do you think they should have gone on fourth down?
I'm one who is more likely to go for it than most people say. Okay. And the unfortunate thing, and we as fans always have this situation where if the coach doesn't make it, when he does something like going for it on fourth down, they get crucified for it. And this is an example. Listeners of my show have heard me say this over and over and over again. Remember the Michigan game when James Franklin chose to go for 2 when there were he was 2 scores
points
behind.
Were going to be in a premium, Jim. I don't know if you understood that.
But he was analytics tell you that was the smarter time to go for it. The difference was if he makes it, it's a great call, or nobody gives him credit for it. But when strategy doesn't work, you get crucified for it. So
if they would have made that 2-point conversion at the start of the West Virginia game on the first touchdown, I still would have hated the call.
That's different. That one I don't like.
Just like I would have hated taking the risk of throwing the ball when you didn't need to if Saquon would have made the catch that he makes 99 times out of 100. But I don't even want to hear. I don't want to hear about 99 times out of 100. There's only one time. You either did it or you don't. People always talk about what's the
0
percentage.
or 1,
what's the percentage chance it's going to rain? The percentage chance is 50%. It either will or it won't. There's a 50% chance that Saquon Barkley was going to catch that ball and a 50% chance he was going to drop it. And guess what?
We got the binary 0. We got the 0 on that one.
Let's go back to the decision in the first quarter, which I alluded to go for extending the drive. Again, the Eagles have a situation where they can pick up another first down inside the 10-yard line. May have been the exact same yardage. It may have been 4th and 4. I think that it was. If not, it was 4th and short for sure. 4th and 4 or 3. And Nick Sirianni decides to be bold. He decides to go for it, and it doesn't work out. Your thoughts there versus taking the easy 3 and starting with a little momentum in front of the home crowd. You're on the board first.
I am typically want to follow analytics. What are the odds? What are the percentages? And if we did this by mathematics, okay, 4th and 4 going for it, just give me a number. I'm not, you don't have to be perfectly accurate. What are the percentages of making that, then eventually scoring the touchdown?
So you're saying,
like, was it 50-50?
It's got to be less than 50 to first convert the fourth down, which is a single shot, and then to get into the end zone, which you think is easy, but look at how many times Atlanta got it down inside the 10 last night. I think at least twice, and they were stymied by an Eagles defense that looked like wet tissue paper from that point or prior to that point.
I agree with you. Okay.
Yeah, okay, right.
So the reason I agree with you is now we're saying this 4th and 4 is not 4th and 1. So I would agree with you. It's less than a 50% chance of making it, I believe, at 4th and 4. In that shortened area of the field, you're not in midfield where you have the whole field to work with. So I believe analytically, at least in my head, that it's a less than 50% chance. I would have taken the 3 points. And the other part to it is you marched down the field. You felt pretty good about yourself. You're on, you got your home crowd. You've got momentum going. You kick that field goal. Everyone still feels very good about themselves. The defense marches onto the field feeling all great. We've got the lead. We're playing from ahead. Those are the reasons why I would have kicked the field goal at that point. And I was surprised that they didn't.
Special edition of Late Lunch on 98.7 The Fox. Chris Buchignani with Jim Galanti of the Keystone Sports Network, live at State College's Quaker Steak and Lube. teeing up my 2 to 4 p.m. stint with the Ironhead, filling in for Goon on the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show out here at Quaker Steak and Lube. We are talking about the miserable result from the Philadelphia Eagles on Monday Night Football last night. Maybe not so miserable for a lot of folks in the listening audience, but certainly miserable for me. And Jim, I've got bad news on the other side of the break. We're going to continue to break down this debacle. I am going to ask you to assign blame for who we can point fingers at for the Eagles being 1-1 when by all rights they should be riding high with a win on Nick Foles night and sitting at 2-0, heading down to New Orleans to take on the suddenly hot New Orleans Saints. And then we're going to talk about what implications this might have for the remainder of the Eagles season. And then mercifully, we are going to move on. So if you're an Eagles fan and you're out there and you're listening, we've all got to move through this. We got to get past it. And the first step to recovery is admitting that you have a problem. So stay tuned. And if you're a Steelers fan and you're finding some sort of, vindictive glee in all of this, that's another reason to keep it locked right here on 98.7 The Fox. We're live at State College's Quaker Steak and Lube. We'll be right back after this.
Coast into fall with a new Kia from Lion Country Kia. Right now, get a 24 Kia Seltos for 5.25% APR for up to 48 months. A new Sportage plug-in hybrid at 0.9% APR. Check out our 23 Sorrento hybrid for as low as 4.5% APR. And don't forget, all 2023 and 2024 Kias come with a 10-year, 100,000-mile limited warranty. Stop in and meet with one of our sales experts today and coast into fall at Lion Country Kia. We want to see you in a Kia.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Get our Best Wings USA, signature sauces, mouth-watering appetizers, or any of our delicious award-winning lube favorites.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
The Center Hall Farm Store has been serving Center County and beyond for well over a half century. A small family business, the Center Hall Farm Store specializes in animal nutrition and manufactures its feed fresh using local ingredients. Get the best in horse, cow, pig, chicken, and bird feeds. If you're not already a customer, stop in and see why so many of your neighbors are. The Center Hall Farm Store at 110 West Allison Street in Center Hall, or call us at 814-364-1393.
A lot has changed about State College. One thing that hasn't is W.C. Clark's Coffee Roasters on 234 East Calder Way. 30 different varieties of specialty coffee beans sourced from over 25 countries and roasted with love each morning in Happy Valley for over 45 years. They'll ship their fresh roasted coffee from their doorstep to yours. Order online at statecollegecoffee.com. That's statecollegecoffee.com.
Two of the top names in local printing have combined to serve you better. King Printing of State College has merged with theprinters.com, forming one of the 400 largest printers in America. Combining traditional offset printing and digital workflow techniques, theprinters.com can print, assemble, package, and ship to anywhere in the world, all with the same high quality customers have known and trusted for over 50 years. Buy local and save. Get started today at theprinters.com.
Lusk & Associates Sotheby's International Realty proudly presents the introduction of our new State College office at 314 South Borough Street in State College. At Sotheby's International Realty, we advertise locally, nationally, and internationally, bringing the best of advertising and promotion to each and every one of our properties, big or small. Call now.
With a Timber Kids savings account, you can start to save money, earn prizes, and teach your kids the value of savings. It's easy as 1, 2, 3. Building futures is what we do at TFCU.
You really need to belong to a credit union. You belong at TFCU, Timberland Federal Credit Union, a credit union you can grow with.
Get up and get going with the Happy Valleys 98.7 The Fox.
And welcome back, everybody. You're tuned to Late Lunch on 98.7 The Fox, a special bonus live broadcast from State College's Quaker Steak and Lube. I'm your host, Chris Buchignani. I'm joined by Jim Galanti of the Keystone Sports Network. You can hear Jim on his show every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday here on The Fox, starting at 2 p.m. And a reminder to our online listeners, you can stream The Fox at 987thefox.com. And whether you're a local radio listener or you're online, plenty of football teed up for Fox listeners this week. Jim, starting on Thursday night, we're going to have the broadcast of Thursday Night Football. Intrigue in the AFC East as the New York Patriots travel to take on Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets. Coverage starting at 7:30 p.m. And then on Friday night, all 5 high school football programs in Center County will be in action at 7 o'clock on Center County Red Zone. It's week 5 of Red Zone, and it has been going great in its second season. We've got whip-around coverage with live check-ins from all of those games, 2 of which will pit 4 of the 5 teams against one another in intra-county battles.
I love high school football.
Me too.
It's the best. That's what Friday night is for, right?
Especially when you get those backyard brawls going on. That's good stuff. So you don't want to miss that Center County Red Zone this Friday at 7 o'clock. College football, a full day on Saturday starting at 3 o'clock with USC at Michigan, probably one of the more important games in the Big Ten and, frankly, in the entire country in terms of determining the contours of October coming up here.
And you know what, Chris? This is why I was happy with some of the shifts in the conferences. This is the plus side to it. You get games like that.
Yeah.
You get Texas and Oklahoma playing teams like Alabama,
USC
Georgia, LSU.
in Ann Arbor in late September is pretty cool.
It is. It's the best.
So following that game at 7 o'clock, we'll have another one of those new conference matchups we talked about. The Oklahoma Sooners are going to travel to take on Tennessee, suddenly one of the hottest teams in the country. And we'll have a nightcap for you. The K-State Wildcats traveling to take on the BYU Cougars. That one kicking off at 10 o'clock on Saturday. And then on Sunday, starting at 10 a.m., we're going to have more football coverage. We're going to have the Goon and Landon Tengwall will be live from the student bookstore from 10 to 11 a.m. And then our NFL coverage starts at 11 with NFL Insider and Fantasy Forecast, followed by an hour pregame. And then hopefully the Philadelphia Eagles can dig themselves out of the hole that they just kicked themselves into last night. They travel to New Orleans to take on the Red Hot Saints at 1 o'clock. Dallas then plays the Baltimore Ravens at 3:45. I don't know who is rooting for whom in that one. Those are 2 despised teams in Central Pennsylvania.
It's the Cowboys. We're rooting against them.
Indeed, unless you're a Steelers fan, then you may begrudgingly be rooting for Western Pennsylvania native Mike McCarthy in that one. And finally, we'll top it off with the Atlanta Falcons versus the Kansas City Chiefs. By all means, Mahomes, please do your worst. So that's a full weekend of football here on 98.7 The Fox. And unfortunately, speaking of football, we have to return to the topic of the Philadelphia Eagles, Jim. And I said before the break, I was going to task you with assigning blame for last night's debacle. So let me give you a list of choices, okay?
Okay.
Nick Sirianni, the head coach. Vic Fangio, new defensive coordinator in his second week of regular season action with the Eagles. Kellen Moore, another new coordinator in week 2 of the regular season. The defense, writ large, Saquon Barkley, and because inexplicably to me, but I've seen a lot of people pointing fingers his direction, and poop does run downhill, as they say, Jalen Hurts. So break it down for me. The math doesn't have to work out exactly. I'm not going to sit here and fact check you.
My first instinct is Saquon and the defense at the top of the list.
Interesting. You and I are going to have very different lists. Go on.
I think it's so easy to blame the coaches. They're the easier target. And if they make a decision that doesn't work, we blame them. It's their fault because they made that decision.
And because they're compensated to understand risk management. That is a huge part of winning football, Jim, is weighing when to take risks and what opportunity cost is on the table when you do it. This is one of my persistent critiques of James Franklin also. I just don't think there is widespread understanding of risk management when it comes to game management in football.
If I have to place a bet, risk management, if my bet is on Saquon Barkley to catch an easy pass coming out of the backfield, I'm going to make that bet.
What if I say the alternative is conventional wisdom that works as reliably as Novocaine since the earliest is whether they were playing rugby scrums in sweaters and pantaloons in the game of American football, okay? What if I tell you, like, yeah, okay, this is Saquon Barkley, a player we have, at this point, a 6-7 year sample size as a pro. And then I say, okay, well, here's 100 years of football conventional wisdom that is as reliable as Old Faithful and the rising and setting of the sun. So I'm going to set that century of this is how you manage the clock in late game situations versus this is a guy we think is pretty good at football.
Football,
and the coaches get paid millions of dollars to make that calculation.
They've been wrong for a century, just like in baseball. They've been wrong.
No, see, you don't think that's wrong. Now, you may say that you can argue that this was an appropriate instance to take a calculated risk, and I can disagree. But you don't think it's wrong to run the ball and take 40 seconds off the clock in that situation.
At 4th and 4. The goal is to get to the first down, and we're playing the percentages.
So you're assuming he gets no yards at all on 3rd down?
Nope, I'm not making that assumption.
Okay. Well, you said 4th and 4.
There's a percentage of it. Or I'm sorry, I misspoke. 3rd and 4.
Okay.
3rd and 4. My bad.
Okay.
My fault.
Yep.
But there is still a greater than 0 chance that they get stuffed with running the ball. The clock will run, but there's a less than 0 chance or a greater than 0 chance that they get stuffed on the run, kick the field goal. There's still 50 seconds left. And, Atlanta comes down the field and scores anyway, which they did, by the way, very quickly. So you call it risk management. You determine how great a risk it is. And yes, Woody Hayes, he is correct. But you know what? Woody Hayes was 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Do they still play that way, football?
No, but I wish they did. And just to be clear, to clarify for those who are just tuning in on the radio or online, you're listening to Late Lunch on 98.7 The Fox. Chris Buchignani with Jim Galanti of the Keystone Sports Network. We're live at State College's Quaker Steak and Lube and talking about the quote with which I opened this program today. I'm going with the Nick Saban pronunciation, by the way. You like it? I've been doing a workshop in a program. I'm going with program. It was from Woody Hayes, former head coach of the Ohio State Buckeyes, referring specifically to the decision by Nick Sirianni and the Eagles coaching staff last night at the end of Monday Night Football. 3 things can happen when you throw the football, and two of them are bad.
Yeah. I have used that quote. I have.
It's a great quote.
But the fact is, football has advanced beyond that, Chris. That's not the way the game is played anymore. And I do think that at 3rd and 4, if it were 3rd and 2, I would think differently. But it was 3rd and 4. So I thought it was a good gamble. I think if Saquon catches the ball that he normally would catch 99 out of 100 times, we'd be talking about how great a game Saquon had again and how the 2-0 Eagles are going to go 17-0 this season.
I don't think I would have been talking about them going 17-0. I would have said they were lucky to escape with a win over a desperate Atlanta Falcons team that does have a lot of talent and was maybe struggling to put it together under new head coach Raheem Morris. But instead, Morris gets to get a win he critically needed with them going to Arrowhead next weekend. It would have been bad news for the Falcons. And, again, to quote Dennis Green, we had him and we let him off the hook.
Yes.
So, all right. So,
and another quote, you are what your record says you are. And right now the Eagles are 1-1. But another conversation that you and I had prior to getting on the air, this is the NFL. It's not college football. You win 11, 12 games, you're in the playoffs. What does that mean? It means you've also lost 5 or 6 games, Chris.
Well,
okay. So I'm not going to go overboard, go crazy about this loss for the Eagles.
Let's move on and talk about that. What, in your mind, do you believe are the most likely implications for this team from this loss? And allow me to orient this within the context of Jalen Hurts now 2-9 in his last 11 starts. We know how last season ended for the Eagles. They were riding high. They were undefeated. Then they completely implode and get their skulls caved in by Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers in the playoffs. A lot of drama around whether or not Nick Sirianni gets to keep his job. Ultimately, he does, while practically everyone else leaves town. A lot of roster moves in the offseason and very high expectations for this team coming in. And after the first week of the season, They beat a very good Green Bay team in less than ideal conditions, and you think maybe last season is now in the past. They collapse in almost exactly the same fashion they did against Seattle on Monday night, which kind of was one of the games that started that slide. How concerned are you that this now becomes an infection that spreads over the course of the next 5, 6, 8 games?
I'm not going to use the one game to do that because, again, so the difference between us feeling good about the team being 2-0 and the team being 1-1, and we're going into the panic mode of, are we going to see the same thing we saw at the end of last season, was all based on Saquon Barkley, of all people, Saquon Barkley dropping the easiest pass in the world. I'm not going to overreact to it, but I'm getting closer to that overreaction. You know?
Here's the good thing. The NFL is 17 games, 17 regular season games, and none of them, with the minor exception of once you get into like tiebreakers and divisional standing, matters more than the other in terms of getting where you want to go, which is into the postseason tournament and a chance to go to the Super Bowl. So it's not college football. There's no style points. And over the course of 17 weeks, invariably, the narratives that look like they'll emerge in the first quarter of the season rarely end up surviving all the way to late December and early January. So what matters more is how this team is looking in the second half of the season. It stinks to lose this one. You look at what the Steelers did out at Mile High this past weekend. They needed that win. That win was an important one to have in the bank because of what is awaiting them in the second half of the season. And for them to get the win, that was really important for them. Same thing for Philadelphia. This would have been a great one to have in the bank. You had it in front of your home fans with Nick Foles in the building. Then you blow it. You only have that chance once, and you blow it in heartbreaking fashion, and it stinks. And it's the sort of thing that for a psychologically fragile team coming off having two of its biggest leaders in Fletcher Cox and Jason Kelce retiring, and the way last season ended, could absolutely snowball on you. The flip side is that you have veterans who didn't make plays. Saquon Barkley drops the pass. Darius Slay gets beaten, torched on the touchdown pass. Maybe that fires them up and motivates them to respond down the line. You've got plenty of opportunity to do it, but really no opportunity to take a breath here, because you got to travel to the Superdome and take on a Saints team that scored 40 points in back-to-back games.
You do, but in the NFL, you are 1 week away from changing the whole narrative.
Sure.
If next Tuesday we are going to be together again, right?
Yes, sir.
And if the Eagles beat the Saints, what is this conversation between us going to be like?
Well, depending on how they do it, probably a lot more positive, because this might be one of the most important times of the entire season to get a win, again, just to avoid that snowball effect. And if you can somehow, sorry, I was going to use a phrase that I'm not sure is appropriate for broadcast. So if you can find the testicular fortitude to step up and win in that situation in less than ideal conditions, I think that probably has the potential to set you on a good path coming out of a nightmare ending to last night's game. But if you don't, if 1-1 turns into 1-2, then you run the risk of this thing metastasizing, especially because there's an understanding in that locker room that your head coach entered the season on thin ice.
I will be much less
Billy Napier action,
much less glass half full if next week you and I talk and they are 1-2.
Fair enough. Have you talked about Monday Night Football and the Eagles enough for this broadcast,
I
Jim?
have.
Okay.
Let's move on.
I most certainly have. Want to thank everybody for tuning in. This is Late Lunch on 98.7 The Fox. Chris Buchignani with Jim Galanti. We got the Ironhead coming up, and joining me here at State College's Quaker Steak and Lube at the top of the hour, I will be filling in for the Goon on the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show. In fact, as I say it, the man walks in. The Ironhead is in the building. We're going to jump to a break here. On the other side, we're going to stop talking about the Eagles mercifully, although I'm sure Ironhead will enjoy making me revisit this game at the top of the next hour. But we're going to talk some Penn State football on the other side of the break. So keep it locked right here on 98.7 The Fox.
Coast into fall with a new Kia from Lion Country Kia. Right now, get a 24 Kia Seltos for 5.25% APR for up to 48 months. A new Sportage plug-in hybrid at 0.9% APR. Check out our 23 Sorrento hybrid for as low as 4.5% APR. And don't forget, all 2023 and 2024 Kias come with a 10-year, 100,000-mile limited warranty. Stop in and meet with one of our sales experts today and coast into fall at Lion Country Kia. We want to see you in a Kia.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak Lube.
Get our Best Wings USA, signature sauces, mouth-watering appetizers, or any of our delicious award-winning lube favorites.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak Lube.
The Center Hall Farm Store has been serving Center County and beyond for well over a half century. A small family business, the Center Hall Farm Store specializes in animal nutrition and manufactures its feed fresh using local ingredients. Get the best in horse, cow, pig, chicken, and bird feeds. If you're not already a customer, stop in and see why so many of your neighbors are. The Center Hall Farm Store at 110 West Allison Street in Center Hall, or call us at 814-364-1393.
A lot has changed about State College. One thing that hasn't is W.C. Clark's Coffee Roasters on 234 East Calder Way. 30 different varieties of specialty coffee beans sourced from over 25 countries and roasted with love each morning in Happy Valley for over 45 years. They'll ship their fresh roasted coffee from their doorstep to yours. Order online at statecollegecoffee.com. That's statecollegecoffee.com.
Two of the top names in local printing have combined to serve you better. King Printing and State College has merged with theprinters.com, forming one of the 400 largest printers in America. Combining traditional offset printing and digital workflow techniques, theprinters.com can print, assemble, package, and ship to anywhere in the world, all with the same high quality customers have known and trusted for over 50 years. Buy local and save. Get started today at theprinters.com.
Lusk & Associates Sotheby's International Realty proudly presents the introduction of our new State College office at 314 South Borough Street in State College. At Sotheby's International Realty, we advertise locally, nationally, and internationally, bringing the best of advertising and promotion to each and every one of our properties, big or small. Call now.
With a Timber Kids savings account, you can start to save money, earn prizes, and teach your kids the value of savings. It's easy as 1, 2, 3. Building futures is what we do at TFCU.
You really need to belong to a credit union. You belong at TFCU, Timberland Federal Credit Union, a credit union you can grow with.
Get up and get going with the Happy Valleys 98.7 The Fox.
Welcome back, everybody, to Late Lunch on 98.7 The Fox. I am your host, Chris Buchignani. I am joined by Jim Galanti of the Keystone Sports Network, and we are out here at State College's Quaker Steak and Lube. We're at the top of the hour. I will be filling in for Goon on the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show with Jeff the Ironhead Byers. So stay tuned for that. And if you're feeling a bit peckish or you'd just like to come out and enjoy a beverage with us, come on out to Quaker Steak and Lube, a great place to hang out, great place to do a business lunch, great place to take the family for dinner. I will tell you, as I have told you often when I have been filling in for the Goon or for Jeff, that one of the most impressive things to me about Quaker Steak and Lube is post-COVID, they have done what practically no other establishment in Happy Valley, to my experience, has been able to do, and that's maintain a consistently high level of service. If you have eaten out at all in the last 4 years, you know that practically everywhere, even the best establishments with the most dedicated and talented managers, have a little bit of a crapshoot going on with the service quality. Not here at the Lube, not once, not ever. Their team is so consistently solid. They're like the complete opposite of the Philadelphia Eagles defense here at the Quaker Steak.
Is that a wing buffet they're setting up?
Yes,
Okay.
sir. At 4 o'clock, the
Asking
wing
for a
buffet
friend.
is
I'm
going
asking
to
for a
open.
friend.
Yes, and it will be open all evening. The all-you-can-eat wing buffet, and let me tell you, folks, they are not skimpy. These are not small wings, not like the tiny 10-cent wings you used to get at the Westerly Parkway Highway Pizza for Monday Night Football back in the day. This is a real chicken wing, and it's got, I think the best selection of sauces you can get anywhere in Happy Valley. So State College's Quaker Steak and Lube, they have been a great partner for us. We're happy to be out here at broadcasting live from their location. Come on out and join us, or make a plan to be out here soon. I promise you will not regret it. Jim, let's talk about the Nittany Lions. They're back in action this week.
Let's shift off of the
against
Eagles.
Most likely the worst team in FBS.
When you find a way to be behind 65-0 at halftime, and by the way, did you hear that?
And that game was not as close as the score would indicate.
Right. They were offered the ability to either have a running clock or shorten the second half, and they chose not to.
No, sir. We are going to take our medicine. We're going to accept our check, and we're going to go back home.
We are Kent State football.
Yes,
That's
sir.
not, we have too much pride to do that.
I like it. I respect it, actually. I respect that they're willing to stand in there and take their beating and just basically go back home and re-rack to do it again the following week.
My advice would have been take the check and go home.
For sure. For sure. I mean, if it was my body on the line, maybe I would feel differently, but I don't know. Like I said, I do respect it. So 2 weeks ago, many pundits in the Penn State media sphere, perhaps to include myself and yourself, and Brandon Noble and Kevin Horn, and even Mike the Mailman, promised the loyal viewers and listeners out there in Happy Valley that this was a sacrifice coming to town, and that the key things to look for would be what third teamers got in and when, and would Ethan Grunkmeyer be allowed to throw a pass, and would we get to see Max Granville and Mason Robinson at defensive end, and how soon would that happen against Bowling Green? None of those things happened. Instead, we got our full money's worth for the ticket, because with 5 minutes to go in the game, the result was still in question. So I would forgive anyone listening to us right now who will hear everything we're about to say about Penn State versus Kent State and say, guys, I've heard this song before. But trust me, there is a high, and I am talking historically high degree of variance in the MAC this year. Okay, you got your Northern Illinois, your Toledos, your Bowling Greens, and then you got Kent State, and they are bad at a level that I'm not sure I can fully comprehend.
And, Chris, all you got to do is look at the spreads. And I'm a guy who the spread against Bowling Green was about 32, 33,
yes,
or something like that. And I both advised people to take the Nittany Lions, plus I myself bet on the Nittany Lions, and I lost.
It was one of Mike's trends to treasure picks. He never picks Penn State in those.
So now, after Penn State just barely gets by a MAC team that they were a better than 30-point favorite, what's the point spread for Kent State?
I believe it is at 49.5.
Yes. And the people in Vegas typically know what they're doing. The fact that the Bowling Green game did not change anybody's mind about what this game will look like. I guess, Chris, the way to look at it is it was a 70-point spread against Tennessee. Now it's merely 49 points against the Nittany Lions. That's probably the reaction from the Bowling Green game.
So, again, you're wondering, hey, folks, I've heard this whole song before with the MAC team coming to town. Can I really relax? Can I really go plan to go back to my tailgate early? Just for reference, all right, the Golden Flashes began the season losing 55-24 to Pitt. Then the following week, they played St. Francis of Pennsylvania, okay, a school that you probably didn't know had a football team, and I didn't. I will disclose. They lost to them. They lost to St. Francis in football, not basketball, in football. And then, of course, they lost 71-0 against the Tennessee Volunteers.
And it wasn't as close as the score.
It was not. It was 65-0 at the half, 30-0 with 2 minutes remaining in the first quarter of that one. So Tennessee was really able to do whatever it wanted. And I guess, Jim, the question for Penn State going into this one is that the win is, it was a foregone conclusion that Penn State is going to win this game. If they don't, I advise you to start digging your bomb shelter and stockpiling canned food immediately. The question is, how will Penn State look, and will they be able to dictate to the opponent in the same way that Tennessee, who again is quickly emerging as one of the most solidly built college football teams this season, was able to do last weekend?
I don't know about putting up 70 points because
some of those were fluky. Those are fluky situations, like John Saka inexplicably runs 75 yards for a touchdown despite being the slowest human being alive. Those things are just kind of lightning in a bottle. So, yeah, 70 is tough to do.
And I think James Franklin will want to have long drives, extended drives. He won't be looking to just go over the top, score.
You think
touchdown.
so?
I think
that defies what I think is the prevailing wisdom on social media right now with the fan interactions I've had.
But in dominating, he could run the ball and it ends up Nick Singleton, who's far more likely than John Saka to go 75 yards.
Correct. By the way, I'm not explaining the John Saka reference. Google's a thing. Look it up. You will be entertained. I promise you.
So, it could happen. But I think what I'm looking for, though, Chris Moore, is things not to happen, which are the things that how Penn State created their own self-inflicted wounds last week. The
plenty of those,
the penalties, the pre-snap penalties, even the drop passes. I talk about this a lot. I do not want to hear that the wide receiver and the quarterback are on different pages. Okay. I do not want drop passes. I do not want those penalties, the offside penalties on the defense. I don't want to hear, oh, look at how Penn State's defense is scrambling around as the opponent is ready to snap the ball. I don't want to hear that there's communication issues on defense.
Did you look at the stats from last week's game between Kent State and Tennessee?
No, I did not.
Okay. We're gonna play a guessing game. How many passing yards do you guess that their starting quarterback, their leading passer, finished the game with? Total passing yards.
Kent State?
Kent State, yes.
I'm going to say 21 yards.
Okay, wow. You think he had only 21 yards?
Just the way the question was framed. Fair enough.
Yeah, so he finished with 58. 58 passing yards. So, yeah. If the defense is scrambling around trying to figure out what this offense is doing, look, even if we win by 70 points, you still might want to start digging your bomb shelter.
The point is they could be scrambling around and still stop them.
Correct.
But I don't want to see that mad scramble.
100%.
I don't want to see the defensive ends jumping. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to see, the plethora of holding calls, the get you behind the chains. Even if, it's 3rd and 20 because it's Kent State, you still convert. Don't care, because this game is not going to be in doubt. There is no question. Trust me on this one. Take it to the bank. But I still don't want to see Penn State making those mistakes that they did against Bowling Green.
Yeah.
That's what I don't want to see. I want to see a clean, crisp game. I know those are kind of nebulous terms, but you know it when you see it, Chris.
I think
we didn't see it against Bowling Green.
Yeah, I don't feel like they're especially nebulous at all, especially having watched Penn State versus Bowling Green last year. I know what the opposite looks like, so I just want it to look like the inverse of what we got for 4 quarters in Beaver Stadium. Despite the fact, again, look, maybe I'm being a little harsh on the team, but when you lay an egg against the Bowling Green Falcons, you invite this brand of criticism. So it is what it is. I will give the defense credit for, after playing as poorly as they did in the first half, which was one of the worst defensive performances I've seen from a Penn State football team in a long, long time. They did bounce back admirably. And I give the offense credit that there have been rare, Jim, instances in the last several seasons when we've been able to say, man, the defense was really dogging it out there, and the offense rose to the occasion and picked up their slack, and that happened. So that was encouraging to me. And then the offense kind of cooled off a little bit in the second half, and the defense picked up their game. So complimentary football, I suppose. Let me ask you about two things. I want to circle back to something you said, first of all, which is that you would like to see some more methodical drives versus just, hitting home runs out of the park and get the first team offense off the field.
Yes. And maybe that's not so much that I want to see it, but I think James Franklin wants to see it.
Okay.
Because the one thing we've seen in both games against West Virginia, even though Penn State played really well and we were all happy about it, Penn State did not have many plays on offense. Time of possession or just the number of plays run by West Virginia in the first half. They had multiple 10-play drives.
Yeah, that team
Bowling Green had multiple
10-play. Like moving the ball on West Virginia is no longer even remotely impressive at this point.
We weren't seeing that from Penn State, converting on third down. They kept shooting themselves in the foot, whether it was a third down drop pass, a penalty on a play that would have been a first down. So now it's second or third and 20, and they don't convert because of that. Penn State made those mistakes and gave the ball up. I think that's what James Franklin doesn't want to see. And, I guess I want to see the offense just things work on first down, second down, third down, as opposed to just, hey, I know my guy is so much faster than their guy. My guy runs a 4.3 40, their guy runs a 5.2 40, and I could just send him on a streak down the field. I do that 3 times, 1 out of 3 times, I'll convert. There's my touchdown, and we kick off again. I'd like to see them executing plays. Now, if I end up running a read option and Nick Singleton beats everybody and runs 75 yards, so be it. I'm not going to say, hey, Nick, slow down, run out of bounds so that we could have more plays. But I will say that, I just don't want to see the mistakes that we've been seeing, because those mistakes that they were doing really had very little to do with the opposition. Those offsides on the defensive ends, that had nothing to do with who was on the other side of the ball.
Correct.
Dropping the pass, Omari Evans, that ended the drive when he got hit right in the number, right in the chest. Please, I don't want to see that. Those are the things that I just don't want to see.
Tune in to Late Lunch with Chris Buchignani on 98.7 The Fox, Central Pennsylvania's Sports Authority. We are live at State College's Quaker Steak and Lube. We'll be going to Jeff the Ironhead Byers and myself filling in for Keith Goon Conlon at the top of the hour for the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show. I'm talking with Jim Galanti of the Keystone Sports Network, and we're talking Penn State, Kent State. So, Jim, today on Twitter, I woke up and said I want to talk about anything other than Monday Night Football, so please hit me with your Penn State football questions. And so one question that was put to me was whether or not I thought Penn State would get a sack on Saturday. And I'm going to ask you, first of all, what your answer to that question is, and then I'll tell you how I responded.
Will they get a sack this coming Saturday?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they will.
Okay. Here was my response. I mean, I think that's a reasonable assumption, and I think you're probably right. But I also said, don't be surprised if they don't. I went back and looked at it and was shocked to learn that despite winning 71-0, Tennessee did not record a sack against Kent State.
Really?
Which sounds surprising until you dig a little deeper and you see that Kent State only attempted 17 passes, and they had, not counting a one-play drive to end the first half, they had 10 possessions, and 6 of them they went 3 and out. So you're just talking very limited opportunities, and in all likelihood, one of the reasons why their quarterback only had 58 yards passing is that any opportunity he had to get the ball away before he got crushed, he probably took advantage of it. So I wouldn't be shocked if you just see a very limited number of plays, a small number of passes, and the opportunities just might not be there to get a sack on the stat sheet.
And if Kent State watched the Bowling Green game, which they did,
sure,
the game plan was for the quarterback to get rid of the ball quickly.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just self-preservation. That's another motivation for him to get rid of the ball quickly. So we're going to see that a lot. Maybe the question is, will they have any sacks, and using that as the measuring stick? But I think if we look at it and say 4-man front and they're getting pressure on the quarterback, he's getting rid of it quickly, but they're getting there. I'm fine with that. I think sacks are, one of those overrated statistics that, it's not an indicator of really what's going on in the game. So I want to see, Abdul Carter beat his guy like we saw so often last year with Chop Robinson. If you watch Chop Robinson, really focus on him all game, maybe he gets one sack, but he beat his guy regularly.
It's true.
Those
it's
are the
true,
things
and
I
I
wanna
know they
see.
said the same thing about Odafe Owe, who had a really nice game for the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday. Penn State fans calling sacks an overrated statistic, to me, just has this sound of an ugly person saying beauty is only skin deep. Okay, like
it isn't.
When Courtney Brown was playing for Penn State, you didn't hear a bunch of Penn State fans going around and saying, listen, I know Courtney's putting up gaudy numbers, but let me remind you that sacks are an overrated statistic. No. Nobody was dogging Michael Haynes and Tamba Hali for only racking up a ton of sacks.
Let me change the narrative. Let me put it a different way. If you have a sack, that means you're putting pressure on the quarterback.
Yeah, correct. Fair.
But if you don't have sacks, that doesn't mean you're
you're not disrupting and pressuring the QB.
Well, let me ask you this question. Now,
please do.
Everyone knows, and everyone who's heard me talk knows I'm a big Manny Diaz fanboy. Okay,
sure.
I am. And I loved his style of play. I love when they put 7 guys up at the line of scrimmage and you didn't know who was coming, who wasn't.
Me too.
It was conducive to making those disruptive plays.
It was also good for confusing the quarterback. So even if you didn't do anything exotic, the mere threat that you might often got up inside many quarterbacks' heads, so they'd start seeing ghosts out there.
Right. And I think my favorite thing about it was you might only send 3 out of the 7, but you had no idea which 3.
Correct.
The guys who are the actual defensive linemen, they could be the ones who are dropping back in coverage.
Yeah.
And you could see, I've talked about this play often where he had 2 cornerbacks blitzing from the same side of the field. How often do you see that, Chris? I guess my question is with some of this discussion about not getting to the quarterback, do you think we're going to start seeing more of that kind of pressure from Tom Allen as a reaction to the fact that, they're not getting to the quarterback enough?
Yeah, I think it's likely. I don't think we're going to see it on Saturday. I mean, I certainly hope not, because there's no reason to let Brett Bielema and his staff know that that's something you're planning to incorporate into the defensive game plan when all you need to do to beat Kent State. And I do this every time I say something like this, I can hear the voices in my head. This is what you said 2 weeks ago. Honestly, though, this is apples and oranges, truly. All you need to do to beat Kent State is show up and not be all of you, all 100 men on that roster to play the worst game of football they've ever played in their lives all at the same time. And even then, they still might win by double digits.
What about this theory? And this is a discussion I had with Dustin Schutte on our show earlier this week.
Yeah,
He's
sure.
a Sports Illustrated Big Ten writer. And he talked about this idea of instead of the vanilla defense, you start showing things. So now Brett Bielema next week has to see that on film and worry about it. But I'll use the example of that 7-man front. If you show that against Kent State and you show, these 3 guys are the ones that rush. Okay, fine. Brett Bielema sees that. But you know what? When you put up a 7-man front, it's not those 3 guys. It's the other 4 guys or 5 guys. You tease them with something, and they have to worry about it because they saw it on film. They start prepping for it, and they start prepping for, when we see the 7-man front, they only rush 3. Well, guess what, Brett? Joke's on you. We're sending 5 or 6 this time, So it's, to me, Kent State, it's an opportunity to work on some of these things.
That's fair. There are 2 conflicting schools of thought. There's the one that says you hold everything back until you absolutely need to unleash it on an opponent that is worthy of that type of complexity. And then, to the other side is you just throw as much as you can to the wall to take out precious film study time, because your opponent is going to have to spend a little time, breaking down every single look you've given opponents in prior weeks.
Plus, you get the opportunity to work on some.
To work on it in a live fire situation, and not for nothing, that's important. So, I think the overall takeaway here is that you want to. It's like an NFL preseason game. You want to stay healthy. You want to see the starters play, as you said, a clean game, a disciplined game, crisp execution, and you want to see them out at or even before halftime. And what I would like to see, Jim, especially with the prolonged absence of Jackson Smolik because of his injury situation, a chance for Ethan Grunkemeyer to actually operate the offense and throw the football, not just hand off for runs up the middle. So whenever the time comes to shift away from Drew Aller and Bo and let some of the young kids and some of these third teamers get out there and get meaningful reps, let them be meaningful reps. Let them run the offense.
Yes, and let him run the offense the way you normally would, as if it's a competitive game.
Correct. Because that's the only time he's going to play this year. He's either going to be in a situation when the game is well in hand, or you're in a tough situation and he needs to be prepared to do something other than hand the ball to the 7th-string tailback so he can run up the gut.
And you know what? It's a possibility. How can we call an Iowa game a couple years
Okay,
ago?
all right. Thanks, Jim. We're going to open with the Eagles game. We're going to end with that. It's a pleasure having you, I guess, on the show. Thanks so much.
Maybe not.
Jim Galanti from the Keystone Sports Network. We're going to take a little break here from State College's Quaker Steak Lube, but we're going to stay right here. When we come back, technically one show is going to end, a second is going to start. I'm going to yield the hosting microphone to Jeff the Ironhead Byers, and I'm going to become the panelist filling in for Keith Goon Conlon on the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show. So don't go anywhere, whether you're online or on the radio. You can just continue to get this type of, on one hand, insightful analysis, or from my perspective, absolute torture that comes with discussing Monday Night Football on the other side of the break. You're listening to Central Pennsylvania's Sports Authority, 98.7 The Fox.
Coast into fall with a new Kia from Lion Country Kia. Right now, get a 24 Kia Seltos for 5.25% APR for up to 48 months. A new Sportage plug-in hybrid at 0.9% APR. Check out our 23 Sorrento hybrid for as low as 4.5% APR. And don't forget, all 2023 and 2024 Kias come with a 10-year, 100,000-mile limited warranty. Stop in and meet with one of our sales experts today and coast into fall at Lion Country Kia. We want to see you in a Kia.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak Lube.
Get our Best Wings USA, signature sauces, mouth-watering appetizers, or any of our delicious award-winning lube favorites.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak Lube.
The Center Hall Farm Store has been serving Center County and beyond for well over a half-century. A small family business, the Center Hall Farm Store specializes in animal nutrition and manufactures its feed fresh using local ingredients. Get the best in horse, cow, pig, chicken, and bird feeds. If you're not already a customer, stop in and see why so many of your neighbors are. The Center Hall Farm Store at 110 West Allison Street in Center Hall, or call us at 814-364-1393.
A lot has changed about State College. One thing that hasn't is W.C. Clark's Coffee Roasters on 234 East Calder Way. 30 different varieties of specialty coffee beans sourced from over 25 countries and roasted with love each morning in Happy Valley for over 45 years. They'll ship their fresh roasted coffee from their doorstep to yours. Order online at statecollegecoffee.com. That's statecollegecoffee.com.
Two of the top names in local printing have combined to serve you better. King Printing and State College has merged with theprinters.com, forming one of the 400 largest printers in America. Combining traditional offset printing and digital workflow techniques, theprinters.com can print, assemble, package, and ship to anywhere in the world, all with the same high quality customers have known and trusted for over 50 years. Buy local and save. Get started today at theprinters.com.
Ready to be part of something bigger? Come pave the road to success at Glen O'Habaker and discover a career where your hard work and determination can build a bigger, better future. Our team believes we can build a stronger future together. Join us at Glen O'Habaker, where we value teamwork on the field and on the job. Go to GOHcareers.com to apply. GOHcareers.com. And best of luck to all the Center County sports teams all season long from everyone at Glen O'Habaker.
With a Timber Kids savings account, you can can start to save money, earn prizes, and teach your kids the value of savings. It's easy as 1, 2, 3. Building futures is what we do at TFCU.
You really need to belong to a credit union. You belong at TFCU, Timberland Federal Credit Union, a credit union you can grow with.
WFXX, once again.
The Fox, your sports radio. Broadcasting live, loud and proud from Central PA's Sports Authority. WFXS America. 98.7, the Fox State College. The Goon and Ironhead.
Ho, 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 those guys, those crazy cats. We are goonless as we start this Tuesday edition of the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show here on Sports Radio 98.7 The Fox. And the dear Chris Buchignani joins us and filling in for the Goon today. And putting in the long work day here is the dear Booch, and it's even longer work day as a result of the long night that became Monday Night Football last night.
Prime timers, man. The older you get, the more you find yourself thinking, I stayed up for that.
Amen, brother. Amen, brother. But you at least have the Philadelphia Phillies to fall back on. And the Phillies, despite the loss to the Brewers last night, yes, are playoff bound. And I do think the baseball playoffs this year, and we aren't going to delve too far into this, at least not at the start of the program, but I do think there's some really intriguing possibilities for the matchups this year. Yep. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun, for the teams that are involved in that sort of thing and the fan bases that have the opportunity to follow along with those sorts of things.
Can I ask you a question about that? This is I'm going to transparently try to delay having to talk about the Eagles again here for as long as I can.
Perfectly reasonable.
So at the beginning of the season, I thought I'm going to go out on a limb here. I understood I was making a pretty crazy prediction, but I had a feeling like it was not total lunacy. Like there was some logical reasoning to back it up. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to swing for the fences, and I'm going to predict that this Pittsburgh Pirates were going to be a postseason team. They've expanded all these wild card spots. And you looked at it and you thought, hey, that's kind of a lousy division. They're going to have a lights out pitching rotation. If they can just be competent to slightly above on offense and have a good record at home, you could see them sneaking into that last wild card spot again, especially in that NL Central, which is just not especially compelling. And at that point, you weren't even sure how good the Brewers were going to be. So you will agree with me, right, that was not it was a big prediction. It's a wild prediction, but it wasn't complete insanity, right? Like there was a logic to everything I just laid out.
No, for sure. And I think that the start, you'll always start with the starting pitching. And it's like, well, yeah, if these guys, if Paul Skeens can come up and be half as good as what they're projecting him to be, and you look at the rest of that
and he's been that and lineup. More,
he's been just phenomenal. Even last night he ends up taking the loss, but it's a pretty tough luck loss from Skeens' perspective. And I think, did I see the stat that he has at the moment has the second lowest ERA by a rookie since 1950. And now I'm going to get something mixed up here, but I think it was like 2.07 or somewhere in that range, which, when you think about the guys that have come through Major League Baseball, it is very impressive. And the thing is, we've talked about before, the thing with Skeens is he just pitches with a understanding. Obviously, he has all the skills in the world, certainly has a tremendous fastball, but that is not what he relies on by any stretch. And above and beyond that, though, it's one thing to have the tools. It's another to really be able to have the confidence and the feel at that level to be able to know when to pull out certain pitches. And he made Goldschmidt. Now, Goldschmidt ended up getting a RBI later in the game, but he made him look absolutely ridiculous in the first strikeout
of him last night, but he just has a remarkable understanding of what it is he is wanting to do and how to set things up on the mound. And then, yes, obviously, again, he has an unbelievable array of pitches and is very effective at all of them. He really, I think the word phenom gets thrown around maybe a little too casually sometimes by certainly me and I think others in the media. This dude is clearly a true phenom.
Agreed. Do you think that?
But with him, the Pirates are going nowhere.
Well, right. So do you think the sentiment among the fan base was that this was a missed opportunity?
I do. I think the bigger concern is over the next 3 years, are you going to be able to cash in on this opportunity? I don't think it's as big of a deal for most fans that they didn't get there this year.
Okay.
I think it was a little bit of a reach, and it felt like it was a reach. I'm with you. I thought it felt like possible if everything lines up right, especially they're in the right division, all of that. But I do think if we get to the end of next year and they're in a similar position or right around 500 next season, that you're going to feel like, man, this is because the window, as our buddy the horse put it in a group text very shortly after Skeens was called up, our window is Skeens' tenure in the Bird. That is the window for Pittsburgh, which means they got to cash in here over these next 3 years. Now,
and no matter how good and genuine a guy he is, and he certainly seems to be, everyone in their life looks to maximize their earning potential. And when he hits free agency, he very well could become the highest paid pitcher, maybe even player, period, when he hits the market. And Pittsburgh will not be able to match what the big clubs are going to offer.
No, and the problem is, and this is where for me, the great frustration is I actually think Skeens is a good enough guy and all of that if it was
close,
if it was in the neighborhood, it's like, all right, what's the difference between 220 and 250 million or 250 and 280? It's like, all right, at some point. But the problem is there's going to be probably between $100 and $150 million gap between what he gets and wherever he goes and what the Pirates are going to be able or at least willing to offer. And that, I don't care how good of a guy you are, you're not taking a reduction of that sort just because, hey, this team believed in me at the start, and nor should you. That's absurd.
Especially if you're in a situation where you also understand not only are you taking a massive pay reduction from your market value, but you're chewing up all of the available resources to surround yourself with talent on the team.
Yes.
If the Pirates even got close to paying Skeens what he's going to be offered as a free agent, what else would they have left to spend on the rest of their roster? And again, there's what they can and then what they're willing to spend. And those are two totally different things, but only one of them really matters, right?
Yep. And at the end of the day, that's, again, the source of great frustration for those of us that are Pirates fans. But
it should be. And I think that's bad for the sport. I think it's bad for Major League Baseball. Those situations exist as much as they do.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that is, for me, it's just going to be interesting to watch is I talk about that window being, kind of the next 3 seasons here for the Pirates. Well, that window, when we say cash in, that's going to be interesting to see too, what the degree or level of satisfaction is with, hey, the Pirates made another 3 playoff appearances, got ousted in the wild card game in 2 of them, and got ousted in the first round of the other. Is that cashing in on the opportunity? Like Sidney Crosby, the talk was early, man, are you going, well, you win, and certainly in the Pirates case, if you win a world championship.
sure.
Anytime in my lifetime, you have cashed in.
Yeah.
For sure. I would argue that if they get to the World Series and lose, even if they get swept, that is, man, more power to you.
Correct.
Amazing.
Yep.
What I suspect is that the Pirates organization, aka Bob Nutting, what he is going to look at is cash in terms of the seats.
Yes.
We got the playoff
did we
game.
literally cash in?
Yes, we got the playoff atmosphere. We got people believing that maybe, just maybe, and it's not going to happen because they're not going to make the move to. And listen, and I understand, and I've gotten into this with a few people over the years. I get that there's no guarantee. You can make moves and then it doesn't pay off. I mean, the Dodgers, it's pretty hard to argue that they did not go all in with the chips this year. We'll see whether or not that ultimately pays off or not. But certainly Dodgers fans, you cannot be upset that your organization wasn't doing everything within its power to go out and provide you a championship team.
Right.
I think much the same thing with the Yankees. I actually think much the same thing with the Philadelphia Phillies. The problem is, and again, could the Pirates, and that's what they're going to have to hope, could they catch lightning in a bottle and win a World Series in this window? Yes, but it's not going to be because the ownership went out and, man, we've got to get these pieces in there. Like, they could just, man, you get the right pitching matchups, you get a couple of guys that were hot at the right time, but it's going to be that they almost luck their way into a world championship. Rather than, hey, man, we are all in. Let's do everything we can to make this, to realize the potential of the opportunity that's here. And again, that's just frustrating and disappointing when you go into that knowing that that is the situation as a fan of any given team.
Yeah, it's I feel bad for the city and for a lot of longtime Pirates fans out there. And again, just as somebody who cares about the health of the sport, it's just not good. It is not good to have league-wide franchises, especially in great sports cities, where you really could be, you could have a flourishing following of just a competitive team, to be trapped in quicksand that you're never going to escape because of terrible ownership. And the league is just structured in such a way that if you've got a bad owner, like, that's it. You are just adrift permanently. There's no way back.
There isn't. And again, it's just terribly frustrating from the fans' perspective. Couple of things just on the college football front that I think are interesting.
By the way, can I just point out, I artfully dodged having to talk about Monday Night Football for the first 15 minutes of this broadcast, and somehow tricked you into talking about the Pirates.
My heart, that was my heart was kind of breaking for you.
I know I'm going to get it eventually, but I just want to pat myself on the back for surviving as long as I did.
A couple of things. So as a Steelers fan, like your loss to the Falcons, I understand the frustration, bordering on anger, all of that.
Sure.
The Falcons, and we'll see how the season plays out, but that's a good team, and I think they'll get better as the season goes along. I think Raheem Morris has a good pulse there, and I think that's not going to be looked at as just a brutal loss.
They're going to KC this week, which you can hear right here on 98 the Fox, the Sunday night game. He needed that one bad.
For brutal losses, I refer you to the Pittsburgh Steelers of each of the last probably 6-7 seasons where they are losing games, and you look back at the end of the year and you're like, all right, the Steelers are a playoff team, and they lost that game to the team that went 3-13 or 3-14 now. It's like, what? So I get the frustration, and certainly it was there for the taking, all of that. But as a Steelers fan, I'm just telling you, it can be even worse than what you saw last night, because this is very early in the season.
Right.
Plenty of time to recoup from it, learn from it, all of those things. And the consequences now could play out that it becomes consequential. And certainly I think that NFC East, my fun stat, the Dan Patrick stat of the day, if we were doing that, is that every division in the National Football League has at least one 2-0 football team, save one. The only division that has no undefeated teams through the first 2 weeks of the season is, in fact, the NFC East, where you have the 1-1 Eagles, Cowboys, and Commanders, and, of course, the 0-2
Giants.
hapless New York Giants, to whom the Giants say, thank you, Carolina Panthers, for saving us from being clearly the worst team in the National Football League.
You saw the stat about that Washington-New York game from this past weekend, right?
I don't
First
think so.
time in NFL history that a team has scored 3 touchdowns and allowed no touchdowns and lost. It's never happened before.
Is that right? I did not say that.
So for context for everybody, Washington kicked 7 field goals to win the game. New York's place kicker, Graham Gano, I believe, was injured early on in the game, so they had no one to kick extra points. So they scored 3 touchdowns, but failed on all 3 2-point conversions.
It's
I mean, like, you want to talk about heartbreaking ways to lose. I mean, that is just an alarming level of incompetence from the Giants. But I know there were a lot of Giants fans celebrating last night when Saquon dropped that pass.
There have not been many playoff teams, certainly in the modern era, let's say the Super Bowl era, who have advanced to the playoffs averaging 1/2 a touchdown per game, which is what the Steelers are on pace to try to do in 2024. They have 1 touchdown through 2 games, but they're sitting there at 2-0, and a big one coming up Sunday for a multitude of reasons for yours truly. First of all, first and foremost, it's Harbaugh.
Yeah.
Anytime the Steelers or any of my teams are matched up with a Harbaugh, it's personal, as Deion Sanders would say. So
yeah, that's right. You guys have a blood feud with that whole family.
We absolutely do.
Yeah.
I do on multiple levels.
Indeed.
And so I desperately want the Steelers to win that game for that reason. Both teams, of course, 2-0 on the young season, and this will be the Steelers' home opener. The impressive thing, again, about Pittsburgh is not only 2-0, they won both games on the road, so they're setting themselves up well. Now, most of us, looking even before the season began, said, and I did not have high hopes for the Steelers this season. They have improved, certainly, my hopes for the upcoming year. I still, because of that offense, I have real doubts about the long-term success possibilities here for this team. But a couple of things that I think are very encouraging through the first 2 weeks. The defense certainly looking like it's going to live up to the billing, so long as it stays relatively healthy. The biggest thing for me, though, through the first 2 games, and the most surprising thing to me, is 0 turnovers from Justin Fields. I was okay with Fields. I don't think they had a great option at quarterback if both are healthy. I don't think either are a great long-term solution.
Agreed.
But I think that Justin Fields gives you more potential, and we've seen it through these first 2 games, when you have a suspect, we'll call it, offensive line. Suspect offensive line. Some people would call it a poor offensive line. I'll go with suspect.
Yeah, having watched the Giants and the Bears already this season, I think there are subtle levels to this, Ironhead.
That's fair.
You guys reside in the suspect tier. Trust me.
That's
there is at least one layer below
I
where
think
Pittsburgh
that's
is.
correct.
At least one.
But the knock on Justin Fields by me and many others was, okay, yes, this guy can make some plays with his feet, and that could be invaluable for this offense the way it is constructed. But in order for this team to win, they're going to have to win the turnover battle or at least hold even. Like, that defense is good enough that if you are winning the turnover battle, which is largely what's happened through these first 2 weeks, is that defense is good enough. And Justin Fields has been, through 2 weeks, I'm going to knock on the wooden table here at Quaker Steak and Lube, 0 turnovers. That is, to me, the most impressive stat of the Steelers through these first 2 weeks, even more than the field goals, the 8 for 8 by Boswell, all of the different stats that are out there with the defense and what they've done. Justin Fields' 0 turnovers is huge.
Yeah,
and
agreed.
If that can continue, and I think that is a capital I, capital F, but if that can continue, and I mean, it'd be awesome if he goes through 17 games and no turnovers.
That'd be
but
some kind of a record.
Man, if Justin Fields can keep the turnovers to 1 every 2-3 weeks, look out. Like, that is the recipe for this team, even as flawed as that offense is, to being able to find some success, because that defense is good enough that it is going to create turnovers on its own over the course of the game and season.
And take
again,
points off the board for all intents and purposes, like they did with the interception in the end zone last week.
And the big thing for Pittsburgh, I think, is, can you get an additional possession or 2 per game against your opponent? And if you do, even with that offense, you're setting up in better field position, and hopefully the offense will start to come around a little bit. Again, I don't think we're going to see at any point this season an offense that's going to be compared favorably to any of the great offenses in the history of the game. But if it can become more palatable, can become, hey, this is an offense that can take advantage when you give it the ball on the opponent's side of the field. Yeah, you can occasionally get a touchdown, reliably get a field goal anyway. Then, again, an extra possession or 2 a game, this team is going to be able to win more than it loses. Now, I don't think it's a recipe to be able to knock off the Kansas Cities of the world, or the Vikings, the way they're playing early on here. Some of the teams, again, we'll see how the season plays out. But do I think you can get to the playoffs, much like they did last season? Yeah, and maybe even sneak out a win or 2. The hope is, and to me, this just feels like pure hope, because I know we're 2 weeks in and the no turnovers truly has been great. I do not have faith, again, that they have a quarterback, either one, a healthy Russell Wilson or a stingy turnover playing Justin Fields. I still don't have faith that either of those guys are guys that can go out and win games with any consistency for you, the way, again, the elite quarterbacks can. Best case scenario, though, is maybe Justin Fields is developing and will, with a better coaching staff, better scheme. And I do think the Steelers' offensive line, while suspect, is better than what he had when he was playing with the Bears in Chicago.
No question.
And I think if that turnover part remains a positive for him throughout the year, and he did make a couple of nice reads. I did not see, and I didn't even have the chance to listen to the game. So I went back. I've read kind of thoroughly, and I've looked at a bunch of video of the game. And there were some throws that he made where it's like, oh,
yes,
man, like that was, you saw the field, man, and you made a dime throw.
Yep.
Now, he had a couple, too, that it's like, ooh, okay, I'm not sure what you were doing there. But if that development continues, I've thought all along, Russell Wilson just did not enamor me, but I like the fact that they signed him, because I do think you need 2 quarterbacks. And however it plays out, I think that's with the limited options that were available, I have no problem with the way the Steelers handled it. Again, I don't think either of these guys are your long-term franchise quarterback. I guess in the ideal world, Justin Fields somehow becomes that. But if he can just become a quarterback that makes good decisions, can occasionally make a big time throw that can be the difference for you, then again, I think they will have a chance to be in just about any game against just about any team.
That's the way the roster is constructed, and through 2 weeks, the team has played exactly the type of game it was built for.
Yes.
And, so I had yesterday, I had Brandon Noble on the show because he called the national radio broadcast for Sports USA, which probably some folks heard here on Sunday on the Fox. And I was just asking him about what he saw from the team and just his thoughts in general on where the Steelers are after 2 weeks. And he made the good point that you talked about the need for that offense to just grow and develop. Like, obviously, there's going to be a ceiling on it just based on the personnel.
Yeah.
And it's going to have to just become a little bit more efficient, a little bit more timely, and execute a few more plays than they have the first 2 weeks.
Yep.
Well, what Brandon was saying, and I've heard the point made before, and I think it's very valid, is that when you contrast the NFL today with like when he was playing in the early to mid 2000s, the lack of, number one, practice time and the rigor in practices in summer camp is almost a night and day difference. They're practicing a lot less. They're hitting a lot less. And so you're working yourself into game shape less and less in August. And they've brought down the number of preseason games from 4 to 3. And the amount that the starters play at all in the preseason is down to almost nothing.
Yeah.
So these first few weeks, a lot of guys are still playing themselves back into game shape. They are still working out a lot of the kinks that maybe in an earlier era you would have been working through in the first half of the 3rd of 4 preseason games, and you would have identified as issues in the second preseason game. And so he made the point that if you're a Steelers fan and you're looking for something more from that offense, what you really want to do is wait a few more weeks. You get to week 5 and 6, and you contrast where Pittsburgh is, where they were now in weeks 1 and 2, and you say, okay, was that really their preseason from an execution standpoint, especially because there was some uncertainty about who's going to be operating the offense. Russell Wilson takes a lot of the snaps when he comes back in August, and then ends up having to yield the job back to Justin Fields from injury anyway. So it's maybe going to be until week 4 or 5 of the season that they've really kicked all of the rust out of this thing and are starting to look like the offense that maybe, again, in an earlier era of the NFL, they would have looked like by the beginning of the regular season.
Yeah, it's interesting, too, because I think...
Trying to be optimistic here.
And I appreciate it, and I'm willing to jump on board with the optimism. One of the things that I do think is interesting in this day and age, and certainly a change from the game I watched growing up as a young kid, is I think it is presumed that you have to have a great quarterback and a great offense to be a championship team. And certainly we've seen a lot of great offenses that have led to championships. The one thing about that, though, is that just like great pitching, I mean, great pitching is great pitching. And not that a pitcher can't have an off day, but like that's pretty reliable. A great defense is a great defense. That's pretty reliable. Again, you may have a day where somebody figures some things out. They're locked in, whatever. But even the great offenses, the best offenses, you have days where it's just like you throw the 3 interceptions. Yep. I mean, again, you throw it 40 times a game, week in and week out. Somewhere along the way, you're going to have just one of those days. Well, not a big deal if it's one of those days is week 11. Big deal if it's in the AFC Championship game or the wild card round or whatever. So, I guess, from the Steelers' perspective, and again, their schedule will get much more difficult. It is loaded on the back end this year. And so all along, I think most Steelers fans felt they needed to get off to a good start. However you define a good start, getting to probably 3-1 somehow, some way through the first 4 games to set themselves up to have a reasonable chance at making a playoff run. Certainly right now, it feels like they have a chance to get to 4-0. Again, I think this is a big one with the Chargers coming up, but a couple of things to like about it. San Diego is having to go across the country, which every time, and it's an early kick. It's 1 o'clock kick. So that is, 10 o'clock their time. So that you have that adjustment that I do think has to be made for the Chargers. And I do think the Steelers defense, this is going to be a fascinating game on a bunch of different levels. I think the coaching matchup is intriguing. I think the quarterback matchup is intriguing in this one. And I really think if the Steelers can, again, limit the turnovers or not commit any turnovers, and if they can get the running game going just a little bit more, not Fields, like Najee Harris and company, just a little bit more, and get a couple of shorter third downs that you're able to convert, don't even necessarily mean it'd be nice to get a couple of touchdowns on the board, but at least, again, play that field position battle, make San Diego have to work 80 yards plus to be able to get points on the board from their side. I don't know. This will be a fun game to see how the Steelers match up.
From a play style perspective, it's kind of the unstoppable force versus the immovable object, because Jim Harbaugh wants to play that old school Big Ten caveman ball style offense. They're running the ball a lot, despite the fact that they've got a really good quarterback in Herbert. I like you, I am fascinated to see how Herbert and just that entire offense matches up against the Pittsburgh defense at, I'm calling it Heinz Field. I've carte blanche to do that, right? We're not doing the Acrisure thing. We're sticking with Heinz Field. Yeah. I don't know. It'll be fun. To me, as a Steelers fan, it's as good as you could have asked for in terms of results through the first 2 games. And it sets up to. And if they can win that one, you have to feel good about them against Indianapolis the following week.
For sure.
And then if you can bank those 4 wins, man.
And then you have, and then there's a different level of confidence, right, throughout that locker room in terms of, all right, now this is kind of who we are. We know how to win. Let's keep building on it offensively. And again, you've kind of bought yourself some time then for that offense to develop into whatever it's going to become. And again, hopefully it's at least more than what we've seen through the first couple of weeks. When we come back, I want to talk some college football, just big picture stuff, because I think there are some different storylines. There were some storylines that we wanted to follow from the start of the season. We'll maybe pick up on those threads a little bit, but there's some other different storylines that are also starting to develop that I think are intriguing if you are a fan of college football. And of course, all of this in the backdrop, or with the backdrop of this being a college football season in every which way, the likes of which we have never seen, and I think in many ways won't see again. It's going to continue to evolve or devolve, depending on your point of view, but we're not going to see a lot of the things, I believe, moving forward that we're seeing or will see as this season plays out. So we'll pick up on that on the other side of this timeout. You're listening to the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show on Sports Radio 98.7 The Fox.
Coast into fall with a new Kia from Lion Country Kia. Right now, get a 24 Kia Seltos for 5.25% APR for up to 48 months. A new Sportage plug-in hybrid at 0.9% APR. Check out our 23 Sorrento hybrid for as low as 4.5% APR. And don't forget, all 2023 and 2024 Kias come with a 10-year, 100,000-mile limited warranty. Stop in and meet with one of our sales experts today and coast into fall at Lion Country Kia. We want to see you in a Kia.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak Lube.
Get our Best Wings USA signature sauces, mouth-watering appetizers, or any of our delicious award-winning lube favorites.
Great times, great food. Get to Quaker Steak Lube.
The Center Hall Farm Store has been serving Center County and beyond for well over a half century. A small family business, the Center Hall Farm Store specializes in animal nutrition and manufactures its feed fresh using local ingredients. Get the best in horse, cow, pig, chicken, and bird feeds. If you're not already a customer, stop in and see why so many of your neighbors are. The Center Hall Farm Store at 110 West Allison Street in Center Hall, or call us at 814-364-1393.
A lot has changed about State College. One thing that hasn't is W.C. Clark's Coffee Roasters on 234 East Calder Way. 30 different varieties of specialty coffee beans sourced from over 25 countries and roasted with love each morning in Happy Valley for over 45 years. They'll ship their fresh roasted coffee from their doorstep to yours. Order online at statecollegecoffee.com. That's statecollegecoffee.com.
Two of the top names in local printing have combined to serve you better. King Printing and State College has merged with theprinters.com, forming one of the 400 largest printers in America. Combining traditional offset printing and digital workflow techniques, theprinters.com can print, assemble, package, and ship to anywhere in the world, all with the same high quality customers have known and trusted for over 50 years. Buy local and save. Get started today at theprinters.com.
Ready to be part of something bigger? Come pave the road to success at Glen O'Habaker and discover a career where your hard work and determination can build a bigger, better future. Our team believes we can build a stronger future together. Join us at Glen O'Habaker, where we value teamwork on the field and on the job. Go to GOHcareers.com to apply. GOHcareers.com. And best of luck to all the Center County sports teams all season long from everyone at Glen O'Habaker.
With a Timber Kids savings account, you can start to save money, earn prizes, and teach your kids the value of savings. It's easy as 1, 2, 3. Building futures is what we do at TFCU.
You really need to belong to a credit union. You belong at TFCU, Timberland Federal Credit Union, a credit union you can grow with.
Get up and get going with the Happy Valleys 98.7 The Fox. The Goon and Ironhead.
On a Tuesday afternoon, Chris Buchignani filling in for Goon, who is vacationing this week, taking it easy in the preparation for the showdown with Kent State at Beaver Stadium on Saturday.
Me all fueled up for that.
3:30 kickoff between the Nittany Lions and the Golden Flashes. Kent State has had some good teams over the years, by the way.
They have.
This is not one of them.
Yeah, you pro the 3:30 kick for the cupcake game?
So I like it myself.
Same.
I like having a little extra time, both before and after the game. I can still get home at my bedtime, which is normally 9-ish.
You and I don't have these issues to contend with. I do sympathize for the folks who come in from out of town, especially not this week, but the following week.
Yeah.
This is going to be rough for some folks.
Yeah, if you did not hear, and I presume most have, but 7 or 7:30 will be the kickoff for Illinois. I think it was pretty widely expected anyway that was going to be a night game for the homecoming matchup and the Big Ten home opener and Big Ten opener for the Nittany Lions. One of the storylines for me in the Big Ten this year was following Matt Rule and Nebraska and whether they could get this thing going in the right direction with the highly heralded freshman quarterback and all of that. And certainly they're off to a terrific start. I still have, despite the win over Colorado State, I still have my doubts about how good that Colorado team is.
Correct.
Good win regardless for Nebraska, just from a psychological standpoint.
Because they lost it last year. Yeah.
And and they needed to, I think they needed to get off to a good start to just get that fan base feeling good about, all right, we're heading in the right direction, regardless of what happens when we get into the meat of the Big Ten schedule. But I will tell you, this game, one of the more difficult games for me to, and anybody that follows this show knows the history is I predict games incorrectly, even when I know what's going on.
I might start having to, solicit some bribes from the Illinois and Nebraska fan bases. Okay, folks, 8:00.
What do you
Friday
want me
night.
to do?
Yeah,
What do you want me to do
get
here?
your bids in right now.
This really is a fascinating matchup to me, though, because
likewise,
Nebraska, again, I think is clearly on the right trajectory. Exactly where they're at now, I'm not sure, but they're clearly, no question, better than they were a year ago and significantly higher ceiling than what it looked like they might have a year ago.
To put it mildly.
And Illinois is a team that even before the season began, I'm like, Brett Bielema, I just think is a terrific coach. And while I don't think the Big Ten is quite as strong at the top as it has been in the last couple of years, I do think the coaching remains as strong, if not better, than it has been, which is saying something. I think the coaching in the Big Ten is as good, SEC included, as anywhere in the country. I would stack, Brett Bielema, James Franklin, Ryan Day, who when Day took over, I had my questions about him. I think we've talked about a little bit with Goon here, but I really think Ryan Day does not get enough credit. Certainly Ohio State, great recruiting, all of the resources, but Ryan Day has that culture in that room down. Like he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
I think to a greater degree than Urban Meyer did. They have an identity in that room of you are going to do things the right way. I mean, it's Alabama-esque. Now, the results have not been Nick Saban-esque to this point.
Yeah, don't
against
give
the
that
elite
description in Columbus right now. The fans do not want to hear it.
I
They
understand
do not want to
that.
hear it.
But I also think the expectations there perhaps are just as slightly unrealistic. Not necessarily for this season. This team should be right in the mix anyway. Should be one of the final two or three, certainly one of the final four standing, probably should be one of the final two, at least in my mind, going into this. But when you look, again, across the board, I just think, I think Greg Schiano is an outstanding football coach, like really, really good coach. Lincoln Riley, we'll see. Obviously, USC is off to a good start. He's putting more of his stamp, I think, on that program now, up and down. But I think Brett Bielema is an outstanding coach, and especially when it comes to line play. And any successful program or coach will tell you that line play and quarterback is where you need to start if you're going to build a successful program. And I think Nebraska's line play has certainly been better this year, but that quarterback is special. And really special. And this is a fun game if you don't have a vested interest, because I know it's early in the season, but I think there's a lot on the line here in terms of the way both the players themselves in the respective locker rooms, but certainly the fan bases are going to feel about the possibilities here, not just for this season, but moving forward. I think both of these teams think this is a game they should win.
Yeah. I
with
think that's right.
where they're trying to get to.
And I think for both of them, the possible end states for their season change based on the outcome. Yeah, and you're right. Even though it is early, that's the beauty of college football. Even in the 12-team playoff era, the regular season still carries far more weight than any individual week in the NFL season.
Yeah.
And for either one of these teams, the loser has some possibilities that were open at 7:59 p.m. on Friday, closed off to them if they don't finish with the win at the end of the night.
Yeah, it's just going to be
and
a
we're going to learn
fascinating
about
game.
both teams too, right? Because
For
especially
sure.
after watching Kansas last week, you do have to question how much we know about Illinois. And you mentioned the fact that it was important from a psychological perspective for Nebraska to beat up on Colorado the way they did. You're not going to get any big awards from me for being able to beat up on Colorado State. Okay, right? Like Colorado, I think, to me, looks like more or less the same team they were last year, even though some of the pieces have changed out. The weaknesses and the strengths are almost exactly the same. So it looks like Nebraska progressed and Colorado stayed the same. But we'll see. We'll see how they look against a coach we know in Brett Bielema, who can coach up a defense that wants to play physical with you for 4 quarters. Now, if they push Illinois around, then, again, been brought up a lot in the offseason, the way their schedule shakes out, things start to look more and more promising that they could enter a contest with Ohio State with a record of 7-0, and at which point they'd be in the top 20 for sure.
Yeah. Oh, and I think, yes. And I think that confidence level, it's just so big. And I think if you can, get that winning early, it's much easier to believe that as the season plays on, hey, maybe we can pull off something spectacular here.
And Illinois wins it. They come to Beaver Stadium ranked in 2 weeks.
Ranked, and I think feeling like they can. So I think they're going to look at the Bowling Green game and say, listen, we can match up
That's our game
at
plan.
the line, right? Like we can, quick hitters. And I think they have a quarterback that is experienced now and can do that. And against Kansas, and, I don't know how I'm with you. I'm not sure how good Kansas actually ultimately is here, but they hit some big plays down the field there as well. I think they kind of picked their spots nicely in that game, but that is a troublesome game, I think, for Penn State, that Illinois matchup. But I will say, having that game at night, while I don't think it assures anything, I think it is a big swing in Penn State's favor.
Yes,
from that crowd and the impact it can have on that game in some key situations.
Agreed.
And we'll see how that plays out. But I just think that's a game that, while dangerous, is, as much of this season is, to me, one of the rare times that it just feels like everything, or just about everything, is playing out in Penn State's favor. The old control the things you can control. You can't control the other things, but those other things that are out of your control are lining up very nicely for the Nittany Lions, from kickoff times to the way the schedule plays out. There's no way, obviously, if James Franklin had his druthers, he's not sitting there saying, all right, we want that bye week in the third week of the season before Kent State. Right. And I'm not saying it's ideal from that standpoint, but this team did seem exceptionally banged up coming out of that Bowling Green game.
Yes, it did.
And not season-ending injuries that we know of, but man, a lot of guys that it's like, you know what, having this extra week, and really 2 extra weeks, I'll be shocked, unless KJ Winston is in fact cleared in 100%. Like, there's no reason to put him or any of these guys that are even slightly banged up out there against Kent State. So you should, in theory, and again, you need a little luck, I guess, with practice and all of that, but you should have a Penn State team that is pretty doggone healthy and ready and raring to go when Illinois comes calling here for the homecoming game. And from Penn State's perspective, then, you have a UCLA team that I thought they were going to be pretty bad before the season started. They might be a little worse than what I was anticipating. Now, Indiana may be a little better than what I was anticipating. I know Cignetti has certainly changed the expectations within that room. We'll see what happens as the season plays out, but they certainly laid the hammer down against a UCLA team that I think that program is really struggling to find any traction right now. And the problem for them is I don't know how you find that traction in this conference at this time, when you're right there with USC. And
I agree.
Again, I don't know how high USC is, but I know they're substantially higher than UCLA, and I don't think that's changing anytime soon.
No, and when you struggle at the level UCLA did against a team like Indiana, I mean, imagine that. You lose to Indiana in the Rose Bowl in your Big Ten opener as a member of the conference. That's brutal. That means that you start to accumulate that stink of losing on you, and that makes it all the more difficult. Yeah, I think you're right. I think you talk about being trapped in quicksand. That looks like a program that is flailing and is going to have a very difficult time climbing out.
Yeah. Now, a couple of other storylines that we thought at the start of the season were, how dominant are the SEC and the Big Ten going to be in terms of these playoff spots, and might each see 4 or even 5 teams get in. And to this stage, certainly the Big Ten with Ohio State is very impressive. I think it is going to be more interesting than I thought to see how everything else kind of plays out right now. I think USC is better than I thought they were going to be at the start of the season, but I'm not ready to anoint them as that's going to be Ohio State's opponent, and I've seen that projected a couple of places already. Now, I'm not saying it's not within the realm of possibility on what we've seen to this point, but I need to see more of a sample size before I'm buying in on that USC defense. They certainly are improved from a year ago. Are they improved enough where they can consistently hang with some of the better offenses in the conference? We'll find out. That's, as I understand it, why they're going to play the games. I don't think this is going to be as big of a test against Michigan as many were anticipating.
It won't be. I am curious to see how going on the road to a different time zone, that offense in the big house versus the Michigan defense.
Yep.
Especially because we now see what an elite level team in that exact same situation was able to do with Texas coming in there. It'll be interesting to compare and contrast Texas Michigan from 2 weeks ago with USC Michigan this week.
It will, and I don't think USC is going to be able to put up the points that Texas did.
No,
I don't think that offense or quarterback is there yet. For Michigan, the change at quarterback, we'll see. It could obviously pay dividends, and it's hard to imagine that offense could look much worse than it did against Texas. But for Michigan, they've got to get the ground game going, and I just don't know that they're capable of doing that this year.
I think you and I talked about this
defenses.
when I was in for Goon over the summer when we were kind of looking ahead to the season. And I said, because Blake Corum played so well last year, it to some extent masked the fact that Donovan Edwards did not look like the 2022 version of himself all through last season.
Yeah.
And now that more of the burden has been placed on his shoulders, he looks a lot more like the diminished version of himself that we saw last year than he did 2 years ago.
Yeah. No, that is for sure true to this point.
It brings me no sorrow to make that observation.
I am with you. The SEC.
By the way, before we get off the Big Ten, I think the conference stinks. I think the Big Ten is terrible. And I'm not even sure.
Well,
I'm gonna wait a couple weeks. I don't know if we have 2 good teams. We'll see. But for sure, I think the vast majority of the conference is a steaming pile of garbage.
See, I don't think that. I think the Big Ten. I actually think the Big Ten has a lot of good teams. What I think they don't have is elite teams.
Yeah,
I think Penn State is good, maybe very good. I think USC is good, maybe very good. I think Oregon is good, maybe very good. Those are the 3 that could.
Sure.
But I think Illinois is a good team. I really do. Not a playoff good team, but I think they're a good. I think they're a hard out. That is a team that I think is going to play hard all season long. I think they will. They are a physical team, and I think you're going to feel it after playing them, no matter who you are. I think that it's that type of a program. I think Nebraska is on the rise. I think it's a good team. Again, not a playoff contending team, not elite, but maybe heading there, and maybe they'll get there under Matt Rule. Again, not this season, but maybe in just another year or two. If they can, the transfer portal changes everything. And when you can, when you feel like you're a program on the rise, and Nebraska has that feel in spades right now, it is then easy to, wow, man, I want to be part of that. Look, these are the cool kids on the block. Matt Rule, I think, knows how to do it, at least at the collegiate level, to get the guys to buy in, to get guys to want to come there. Getting the quarterback recruit is a big deal. And, yep, that's kind of setting the table here for Nebraska. So I think they're a good team. I think jury is still out a little bit for me on how good a team that is. I actually think Rutgers. I think Rutgers is a really good team.
I agree. I
do.
think Rutgers is in the upper third of the conference.
Yeah, and I think their schedule obviously is going to play in their favor for sure as well, and maybe even make them look better than they are. But I actually think, much like Illinois, they are. I think they're a really good team. I think Washington is better than I anticipated. I know they lost the Apple Cup game. Again, they're nowhere near playoff contention or anything like that this year. I actually thought the drop-off might be kind of off the table just for a year or two here till they were able to regain their footing. I've actually been impressed with the where they're at right now, even with that loss to Washington State, in terms of it feels like they have a very clear idea of what it is they're trying to do and how they're trying to do it. Very young in some key spots, but that is a team. I think they're a good team. So when you say a hot mess, I guess I don't think there's. You might be right. Ohio State might be the only team contending for a title. I think the SEC could have maybe 4 teams that are in that category, but I think there's a lot of good teams in the Big Ten, not even playoff contending, but teams that could be in that 15 to 25 range, maybe at least 4, maybe 5 or 6 of those caliber of teams. And the thing with that is, even if you are an elite team or you're knocking on the door of being an elite, witness Georgia and Kentucky this past Saturday. If you are off, and I don't think Kentucky is an especially good team this year. I think it's a good program. I just don't think this year's team is all that. But if you have an off day, even in Ohio State, you have an off day against an Illinois or against a Nebraska, it can be trouble. So
did you see that face masking penalty in that game?
In the
Kentucky-Georgia game?
I didn't.
Oh, Ironhead, you have got you got to check this out. I mean, you can just Google the particulars and it'll come right out. So the thing I do respect about the SEC, I don't know if I like it, but I respect it, is that when they say it just means more, that's not just a slogan. That's a statement of fact. Like most places, if your officials were found to be intentionally tilting the conference, the results in favor of certain teams in the conference, you would be investigated. They would be investigated for that. Down south, I think there are several state attorneys general who would investigate the officials for not tilting the games in favor of the conference favorites. So Kentucky has at the time #1 ranked Georgia Bulldogs on the ropes.
Yeah.
And I hand to God, this is exactly how it played out. There's ample visual evidence. It sounds like I'm exaggerating. It is not. A Georgia player, a defender, grabs the cage of a Kentucky ball carrier's helmet and jerks him by the helmet so violently that the helmet comes off in the defender's hand. Okay? He removes the helmet from the player's head while play is going on by grasping his face mask. Obviously, a flag is thrown for a 15-yard face masking penalty. Now, I've given it away with the way I've set it up, but Ironhead, do you want to guess? which team that penalty was called on?
Oh my God! For taking off his helmet or what?
I don't know. No, it was they called face masking. I don't even know. It was like watching professional wrestling. It was really to such a level of insanity that it was like, oh, it's a Saturday morning and you're watching like, no, like don't look back in the ring. There's a guy with a steel chair.
He's coming out.
Yeah, it was that level of come on. You're doing this on national television. You have to see. It has to be seen to be believed. I'm going to Google it so you can watch it on my phone during the next break.
I will do that, and we'll take that break.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
You are listening to WFXS, Pleasant Gap State College. We are also known as Sports Radio 98.7 The Fox. We're coming back with more of the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show here at Quaker Steak and Lube right after this timeout.
Coast into fall with a new Kia from Lion Country Kia. Right now, get a 24 Kia Seltos for 5.25% APR for up to 48 months. A new Sportage plug-in hybrid at 0.9% APR. Check out our 23 Sorrento hybrid for as low as 4.5% APR. And don't forget, all 2023 and 2024 Kias come with a 10-year, 100,000-mile limited warranty. Stop in and meet with one of our sales experts today and coast into fall at Lion Country Kia. We want to see you in a Kia.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Get our Best Wings USA, signature sauces, mouth-watering appetizers, or any of our delicious award-winning lube favorites.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
The Center Hall Farm Store has been serving Center County and beyond for well over a half century. A small family business, the Center Hall Farm Store specializes in animal nutrition and manufactures its feed fresh using local ingredients. Get the best in horse, cow, pig, chicken, and bird feeds. If you're not already a customer, stop in and see why so many of your neighbors are. The Center Hall Farm Store at 110 West Allison Street in Center Hall, or call us at 814-364-1393.
A lot has changed about State College. One thing that hasn't is W.C. Clark's Coffee Roasters on 234 East Calder Way. 30 different varieties of specialty coffee beans sourced from over 25 countries and roasted with love each morning in Happy Valley for over 45 years. They'll ship their fresh roasted coffee from their doorstep to yours. Order online at statecollegecoffee.com. That's statecollegecoffee.com.
Two of the top names in local printing have combined to serve you better. King Printing of State College has merged with theprinters.com, forming one of the 400 largest printers in America. Combining traditional offset printing and digital workflow techniques, theprinters.com can print, assemble, package, and ship to anywhere in the world, all with the same high quality customers have known and trusted for over 50 years. Buy local and save. Get started today at theprinters.com.
Ready to be part of something bigger? Come pave the road to success at Glen O'Habaker and discover a career where your hard work and determination can build a bigger, better future. Our team believes we can build a stronger future together. Join us at Glen O'Habaker, where we value teamwork on the field and on the job. Go to GOHcareers.com to apply. GOHcareers.com. And best of luck to all the Center County sports teams all season long from everyone at Glen O'Habaker.
With a Timber Kids savings account, you can start to save money, earn prizes, and teach your kids the value of savings. It's easy as 1, 2, 3. Building futures is what we do at TFCU.
You really need to belong to a credit union. You belong at TFCU, Timberland Federal Credit Union, a credit union you can grow with.
WFXS, Pleasant Gap.
Your sports radio. Broadcasting live, loud and proud from Central PA's Sports Authority. WFXS America.
98.7 The Fox State College.
The Goon and Ironhead.
We welcome you back in here on this Tuesday afternoon. Again, Chris Buchignani, the Booch, filling in for Goon today and on Thursday as well. And so he's pulling double duty here at Quaker Steak and Lube. Tougher places for sure to pull double duty than here at the
you
Lube.
Say that again.
The all-you-can-eat wing buffet will be getting underway here as we wrap up our show at 4 o'clock this afternoon. By the way, Jed Donahue and the Pennsylvania Sports Network will roll your way from 4 to 6 this evening. Thrilled to have Joe Lednowski and Jed Donahue on our airwaves here, and actually really love the mix of personalities and conversation we have going on right now with our station. Center County Red Zone, by the way, returns to the airwaves on Friday night from 7 to 10. We'll have live coverage of all of the Center County action, a couple of intra-county matchups this Friday night, along with State College at Chambersburg that we will be covering for you, and we keep tabs on the other Penn State sports going on as well, other high school action from across the area and across the state. And we'll probably preview very lightly this Friday the Penn State-Kent State game on Saturday.
Which is probably more previewing than it deserves.
That is, I think, true. 3:30 kickoff again for the Nittany Lions and the Golden Flashes. A couple of other just quick notes. The Penn State men's soccer team will play its Big Ten opener against Ohio State this evening. That'll be a 6 o'clock kickoff at Jeffrey Field. Penn State is 2-4 on the season. Buckeyes are ranked 12th in the country. They've won 5 straight. They're 5-0-1 overall this season. And again, that game will get underway at 6 this evening at Jeffrey Field. Needless to say, it would be a huge win for Penn State if it can find a way to get the victory over the Buckeyes tonight early in the conference portion of the schedule. And then,
speaking of huge wins for Penn State,
maybe the sporting event of the week. I realize it's not going to draw as many fans to the event in Pittsburgh tomorrow night, but probably a little more impactful than the Penn State-Kent State game will be. You have top-ranked Pitt, which is 6-0 in women's volleyball this season, taking on third-ranked and 8-0 Penn State. Pitt, I think, has swept 5 of its first 6 matches. I think Michigan in the opener, it was either the first or second match of the season. I think it was their opener, and Michigan, I think, actually took them to the 5th set, and then Pitt won. But since then, Pitt has swept everybody. Penn State is coming off a weekend in which it swept all 3 of its opponents in the Penn State Invitational. But this will be a fun one. First-ranked Pitt, third-ranked Penn State, 7 o'clock. And again, this one will be at the Peterson Events Center. So the basketball arena, the bigger facility at Pittsburgh, is where they will conduct this battle. Now, if you have the ACC network, you're in business. If you don't, you're not. It's an ACC network matchup, and we'll get a much better indication of just exactly where Penn State is. Penn State has been very impressive to this point of the season, and this won't be their first test. They have had 3 top 10 matchups already this year, and again, they're sitting there at 8-0. This Izzy Stark, the freshman setter, is fantastic. Like, you talk about bursting onto the college scene. Now, very highly regarded. She's not, this isn't a surprise that she's coming in and setting the world on fire. See what I did there?
I did.
But
well done. Well
man,
played.
it is impressive nonetheless. And this team just has that right mix. That there's the youthful enthusiasm of somebody like an Izzy Stark. They have like Cameron Hanna and Caroline Juravicius, Joe Juravicius's daughter, that are a little more established. This is a fun team, regardless of the outcome tomorrow night. Obviously, it's a team that has a chance to do big things as the season plays out. But this will be a fun one at Pittsburgh tomorrow night. Pitt, Penn State, right away. folks are intrigued, especially in Pittsburgh. I think they are going to get a fantastic crowd, like huge crowd for this. I know
hostile.
I know some Penn State folks that are going down. I have some friends that are in the Pittsburgh area, and well, the one, he played volleyball here at Penn State when I went, and he's like, yeah, we're trying to get a group together and go over and check it out. So it's going to be a enthusiastic crowd for sure. 7 o'clock tomorrow night at the Peterson Event Center in Pittsburgh, and best of luck to the Penn State women's volleyball team. Love to see them bring home the W and possibly a number 1 ranking next week.
Oh, gotta be.
Stanford, by the way, is number 2 right now, if you're wondering who's in between there. But if Penn State goes to Pitt,
number 1, it beats them in their building.
And that would give them 4 top 10 victories here.
Just going to say that.
So, yeah, and winning, again, at the top-ranked team, to me, a pretty easy call that you would jump Stanford, at least for the time being then this season. All right, a couple of other things on the college football front. I don't know how much you're following. There are just so many things, and part of me, I like football. I want to watch the sport, but you obviously have to be paying attention to what's happening with the NIL stuff.
Yes.
The NCAA may be, I know we've been saying this for several years, but so the NCAA is fighting in court here to retain the ability basically to continue to influence the collectives on the college campuses. Pretty much all of the analysis I've read agrees that if the NCAA loses this case, and it's certainly possible. I'll put it that way. It is certainly possible.
The NCAA's teams of lawyers is about as good at their jobs as all 11 on the Eagles defense were on the last drive of that Monday Night Football game.
If that happens,
if that gives you any indication.
If the NCAA does lose in court, if it goes to court, they continue to fight and they lose, it is pretty much certain that is bankruptcy, and thus the end of the NCAA as any kind of an impactful governing body. Now,
it's a shame.
What to me is going to be interesting is if that plays out, as I suspect and kind of hope that it does, if I'm being honest, is okay, how does the vacuum get filled? In terms of leadership or governance of intercollegiate athletics. What we know, Division I or FBS in football.
Question. There's no doubt.
And I'll tell you, I've been doing a lot of reading on the different ways that this could play out. And I don't think anybody has a consensus or really a strong feeling for, all right, this is clearly the way this is ultimately going to play out. And I think that is what makes it all the more, it feels really tenuous, just the existence of college athletics as we know it. And I'm not talking football and basketball. They're going to figure it out one way or another. They're going to get the money divvied up. I don't know. I still think the 22 million thing, where different schools are going to use that differently, and how Title IX plays into that. Do you have any feel for that? Because
let me stop you right there.
Yeah.
So that 22 million number, which is derived from the proposed settlement in the House case, which is a consolidation of multiple class action suits that were filed against the NCAA and its member institutions, that is already being challenged, as we kind of knew it would be from all corners. So I think because it got reported it initially got reported in the middle of the summer, when there was not a lot going on, so it got a lot of attention, and it was kind of framed for people who weren't following it too closely as, well, this is it. This is the settlement, and this is what they're going to do. I think people are still looking at that, and they're like, okay, next year they're going to have 22 million. We're not even remotely close to that thing being approved, and then you have to actually get to operationalizing it. So just my advice to everyone is don't assume that till we get to the end of this thing and money actually starts getting distributed, that 22 million, that's going to hold any water. The number might be a lot bigger. It could be there, but all possibilities are open. And I don't think we're that close to a resolution yet.
Well, so one of the things that I think, Pooch, is just the most problematic, but also intriguing to just watch. So, yes, that's a great point. Is what that was the 22 million per institutional athletic program. That was a proposal,
right?
The issue is, even if it is accepted by the conferences and the schools collectively, that's not, you need the athletes. The athletes are who this is you're
right,
in theory bargaining with.
Yeah.
What still is very unclear and unknown at this point, and how this gets set up is still, to me, the by far the most problematic part of a very problematic overall equation. But like, you have collective bargaining in the NFL. Okay,
Yes.
You have a players union, you have players reps, and the players come and go in the NFL, and you're bargaining on your behalf. And when you come in, you get the lowdown on it, you get to vote, all of that. Is there going to be a similar body set up? And if so, again, I don't know how you go beyond a 5-year deal in collegiate athletics right now, because you will have complete turnover. Even if you had freshmen that are like, yep, we accept this for the next 5 years. Once that 5-year run is up, I don't know how a group currently, if you had NFL players say, all right, we're setting this up, and then a whole new group of players comes in, not one of you is left. Although I'm reading some intriguing stuff about how and I can't even wrap my head around it, but the eligibility part of college athletics could also change. The whole, you have 4 years of eligibility, 5 years to use it, except for the insanity that was the pandemic.
Right.
But everybody has been, including me, has been assuming, all right, once we finally get past this, and I think, but I could be wrong, after this year, that we are basically past it in terms of
there
additional.
Might be a few lingering guys, but there's going to be a big drop off. Yes.
But it is certainly within the realm of possibility, and I would say it's probably likely at this point, that you are going to have at some point, and that some point could be next month, this month, you're going to have people challenging, student athletes challenging that eligibility rule from probably a couple different standpoints, but one being, hey, I want to go to grad school. I don't have NFL talent. I don't have NFL aspirations, but I want to make my gravy while I have the chance.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I'm a starter. I've been a 4-year starter here at whatever school you're at. I want to go to grad school, but I want to keep playing because I can keep making money. Who are you to tell me I'm a full-time student? I am completely enrolled. Who are you to tell me that I can't? And I don't know. I don't have the legal wherewithal or expertise to have any idea how that plays out. But I think that is a challenge that is almost certainly coming. And so even that part may be changing significantly. The eligibility component to this could change significantly. But and we've been talking about this for a while, there are just so many different ways, and I'm talking about the non-football and basketball, although exactly how football and basketball is going to play out is also a great uncertainty right now. But much more so, how are the non-revenue Olympic sports, whatever you want to call them, the non-basketball and football sports, how is this going to shake out, both in terms of money given or financial opportunities provided for them? And is it something that the schools, by and large, continue to, we want broad-based programs? Like, I think Penn State is committed to trying to do this for as long as they can.
Yep.
I just don't know that at the end of the day, and I don't know, maybe they will. I mean, I'm hoping, because I like the college athletic model that's there. It is certainly not perfect. It draws a lot of criticism from, and I've read it, and there are some good points in there and I understand the argument, and to some degree, probably philosophically, I actually agree that, man, let's get back to college being college. And, hey, if while you're here, you want to do this extracurricular activity and join the athletic team, cool. We provide you that opportunity. And here you go play some other local teams like Penn State did way back in the day when even the football team was playing, your Bucknells and your Penns and those sorts of schools. Philosophically, I can probably be persuaded that that's a pretty good way to go.
Sure.
I love what we'll call big time Olympic sport opportunities. Obviously, wrestling for me, I love, but I mean, I really do. I like, our family loves going to the women's gymnastics meets up here. I've loved going to the volleyball, women's and men's, over the years. Across the board, it's fun to me to be able to go see, watching lacrosse games at Panzer Stadium. If you've not had a chance to do that yet, take advantage sometime. Man, that is a cool experience. If you've never been to a hockey game at Pagola Ice Arena, I don't care if you have no interest in hockey, go check out the scene sometime. It is wild.
If you don't care at all about hockey before you go see a Penn State game at Pagola, you will afterwards.
You can't help it. The passion just, it races through your core if you're in an environment like that. Same thing with wrestling. You don't have to be a wrestling fan. If you go to a match at Rec Hall, go watch a Penn State Iowa match at the Jordan Center, or a Penn State Ohio State match at Rec Hall, you can't help but get at least a little caught up and fired up in the passion that's brought there.
We at Penn State, we've got some current and retired coaches, folks like Cale and Charmaret Curtis and Russ Rose. I mean, we're talking about just titans of their respective sports.
Yep.
And I think those types of personalities on various campuses, especially those that have big-time football programs, the ones that are really driving the revenue at the top end, because so much of this is coming from media deals, and the media deals are derived from big-time college football. So like the top 6 or 7 programs of the 18 member institutions in the Big Ten, and Penn State's one of them, they're driving the billion-dollar value of these media contracts. Those folks need to get together, and they need to say, let's get out in front of this thing. We need to be lobbying for just what you said. Everything we bring to the table in terms of elevating the overall experience of college athletics, including, by the way, as a source of inventory for all the television partners. Like, there has been a nice, in my mind, uptick in televising women's volleyball matches over the last few years. I was listening to, they were talking on the radio. I think it was on either Jed's show or on Joe's show, and Jed was guesting. They were talking about how the ESPN audience for college wrestling has exploded since they started doing more coverage. And again, I think Penn State's been a big part of that, drawing casual fans into the process. So they need to make a calculated pitch to say, we are bringing certain things to the table. We're improving the live experience. We're bringing women's sports, which are growing like weeds all across the country in terms of their monetary value. We're bringing television inventory. And these are all reasons that, as you all are figuring this mess out, you have good motivation to bring us along for the ride. Because I think if they don't, if they don't say, if everybody who is not a football or basketball coach doesn't start reaching out and getting together in their respective off seasons and, get the text threads going. Like there was that story about Brett Bielema does the Penn State head or the college Big Ten head college football coach text thread. Did you hear about this?
No.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about it anyway.
Yeah,
Anyway,
okay.
they got to get a text thread going, and they need to say, folks, we got to be our own best advocates here, because if we just let all the football and basketball guys go alone in a room together, they're going to come out and all the cigar smoke is going to filter out, and they're going to say, hey, everybody, we got great news for you. We figured out a plan, and you're not going to hear boo about wrestling or field hockey or probably ice hockey or volleyball or anything else, because if you've only got the revenue sport decision makers in the room, in what world are they not going to keep everything for themselves? I mean, to be fair, they are the ones who are bringing the money in by and large.
Yep. No, and that's why.
Don't let the show end before. I got to tell you about this text thread. It sounds fascinating.
Okay, yeah, I'm intrigued for sure. One of the things that I think that the non-revenue sports need to figure out, and I've been talking to some of the coaches at smaller programs in wrestling in particular on, like, what is this looking like for you? Like the 30 scholarships thing, like at first blush, right? Everybody's like, oh man, this is awesome. Folks, not all schools, in fact, I think very few schools are going to be offering the 30 scholarships that you're allowed to.
When you win a sports car at a game show, and then you find out you have to pay the taxes
all
on the
of
car.
the
Yeah.
yes, and so yeah, I think that's. But one of the many areas that has to be sorted out there, and that's what I've been talking with them about, is okay. Well, so they're like, we're trying to see if we can get together in like some of the other the non-Big Ten conferences, and can we get together and say, hey, our schools are going to offer between 8 and 14 scholarships, or between 10 and 15. And so that there's, and this is what I don't know, and I really don't, because I asked the question. It's like, oh, I don't think so, but I don't. From a legal standpoint, like, could you argue that is colluding against the opportunity? Like, what if I'm a school?
That case will be in court instantaneously if they do that.
Because it is possible. I think it's unlikely, but it's possible that, and I'm, let's just say it's Conference X. I don't even want to throw out an actual conference as a hypothetical, but Conference X has 10 teams, and one of them has some pretty decent resources or a big wrestling financial booster.
Yep.
And it's like, well, no, but we agree. We want to be fair. This needs to be equitable. Let's cap it at 15. But the NCAA is saying 30. And some kid says, well, I know this guy would be able to give enough we should have 20 scholarships. And I just don't know enough about the law and how all of that would play out to know. But
I know enough
here,
to tell you two things. I can tell you that for sure the case would be brought. I follow enough analysts and attorneys who are working in the space, and many of whom are looking. I mean, you could tell they're already salivating to start getting these cases into the docket. I can also tell you that there is a better than 50% chance that they would win if the case was brought.
So ultimately, do you win, though? If those schools then turn around and say, you know what, okay, but we don't want to be competing against these two schools over here that are going to be able to offer 20 scholarships when the most we can offer is 10. And to be honest, that's a tremendous strain on us and our program. So we're done. Now, the other thing that I don't know how this could play out is, so one of the things that is talked about is, all right, some of these sports could just go, at least at some of these schools, could just go the club route. And if you don't know, I think most do, but like Penn State has a thriving club sport opportunity, including a lot of the club sports that Penn State has. And these are teams that travel, they have, you got to make the team. It's not a varsity sport. You're not getting scholarships for it, but they're in sport, like Penn State Club softball, Penn State Club baseball. Like it's sports that we have varsity sports in as well.
Yep.
But then there's also the club sport opportunity. Now, what I think is, again, I just don't know from a legal standpoint is, all right, well, we're not offering scholarships. We're out of that game. We're not doing the NIL stuff in terms of the collective. Any kid on any campus can go sign. You're not preventing it from a kid.
Right.
But what I don't, so can you offer that just club opportunity experience without any of this stuff, this other stuff factoring in if you're not providing the varsity opportunity as well?
In that case, I think the answer is probably yes. Like you would have, and this is not good news for people who are fans of broad-based athletics programs, that it does seem like that would be one out. And I agree with you, man. Like the real risk of programs, schools saying, listen, we're universities. There is no rule that says we've got to offer any sports at all.
Right.
And if you're one of these schools that has gotten, so one of the many things that's holding up the House settlement is that there are a lot of schools whose football programs don't make any money that are still on the hook for helping to pay some, a not insubstantial part of these damages.
Yes.
And they're saying, hey, wait a minute, what's going on? We've kind of been dragged along here by Oklahoma and Texas. Houston Christian is one of the schools disputing it. They may look at it and say, it's just at this point, it's untenable for us to do anything, so we'll do nothing instead.
Yeah, and that's where, I don't see any way at this point, and I hope I'm wrong. And again, in the overall scheme of things, maybe philosophically, this is more than okay. But I think you're going to have a lot, and I see this as harmful to the overall good of society, to be honest with you, because I think one of the benefits of broad-based intercollegiate athletics, and I think it's one of the things that I don't know that the programs do a good enough job of selling, is that they're like Sharmarette Curtis. You look at the number of people who have gone through her field hockey program and then gone out and been wildly successful and productive members of society, and the whole giving forward type idea where it and then they go out and they're working with the future generation of leaders, so they become leaders, and then they are raising the next generation of leaders, and that sort of thing, where I do think there's a good cyclical effect that people who have those experiences and those bonds then are able to go out and, whether it's a coaching tree or just, success overall in the world and the impact you can have. And I think there are other things that can certainly do it. Music, the arts, theater. There's a bunch of different ways you can find a passion that can get you somebody who might be teetering on going down a bad course, getting them on the right course.
Yeah.
But athletics is certainly one of them. And you talk to a lot of folks later in life who had not even, in some cases, not outstanding athletic careers, but got the scholarship opportunity. Man, it gave me the opportunity to go to college. I took advantage of it, and this is what it led to down the road. I think we're going to lose a lot of those opportunities. And I think big picture societal stuff, I think that's not great for us.
I agree.
But I don't know what the answer is in between there, because again, we've kind of gone from 0 to 60 here with the, like in wrestling, 9.9 scholarships to 30. Yeah, 9.9 was too low, but there are Division I programs now. I'm not sure how many. That actually would be an interesting thing. I don't know if that information is even available somewhere, but I think we at the moment have 80-ish, 78 to 80 Division I wrestling programs. Not all of those programs are offering the 9.9.
Right.
And I don't know, like, I really don't know if it's how many are offering even the 9.9. I don't know if it's like half. I don't know if it's all but 10. Like, I know some of the ones that don't, but only a handful that I know of that don't. But going to 30, again, my guess is, and it's a guess, but I think there's a handful of schools that are going to be like, yep, let's fund this baby to the hilt. Penn State probably will be able to do it. Iowa will be able to do it. Oklahoma State certainly will be able to do it. Ohio State, if it wants to, although I'm not sure moving forward, some of these schools, how much they're going to want to. Michigan, I mean, maybe 10 schools, maybe 12 at the most that I can think of that I think would be like, yeah, we're good. Let's see if we can do the 30.
What would you folks like? Would you like 30 great wrestlers or one really good cornerback? I'll just let you put your votes in the hat and we'll see how it shakes out. Yeah, I think I have a feeling how that's going at Ohio State and most of the schools, if that's the choice they're forced to make.
And so the other part of it, though, then is, okay, well, that's fine. Yep, you don't need the 30. We'll do the best we can with the 15 or the 10. Well, okay, but if you've been a top 5 program, let's say an Ohio State or a Michigan, a top 10, and in the top 5 fairly frequently here recently, if you now are 11th to 20th, right, consistently, and not much hope of breaking into the top 5, which, again, if you are offering 15 scholarships, I mean, think about it in football. That was always there were schools that had hundreds and there were schools that had 60.
To take it back to what we were talking about at the very opening of the show at the 2:00 hour, the difference in Major League Baseball between the Pittsburgh Pirates organization and the Yankees, and how I was saying that's bad for the sport. What you're describing right now, I think, is going to be bad for the sport and those involved with it, but also bad just from a financial perspective, in terms of how any of these things are marketable as a product anyone's going to want to consume.
And I think that's going to be one of the issues, or at least my concern is that, okay, the schools that can offer 10 to 15, after 5 years of seeing that that's not going to get you competitive in any way, shape, or form with the Oklahoma States and the Penn States of the world,
right.
Say, well, do I want to? Does it make sense for us to keep investing in this program that's never going? And again, I can make the argument either way, but I suspect a lot of these ADs looking at what is paying for their jobs. You know what?
We can't do everything, so instead we'll do nothing.
I think we'll do just a club sport for all of these other sports, and let's go all in on football and basketball.
Yeah.
And one of the things with this court case is, again, I don't like the NCAA, don't like the way it's been adjudicated, but if they do lose, right, and they don't have any sort of control over the NIL collectives, well, then the Wild Wild West becomes even more wild, because now you can have one school. All right, we're spending the $22 million on, we don't have any, maybe, I don't know how this is going to work with Title IX, but maybe they have to have the 2 women's programs or 3 women's programs, and then their football and men's basketball. And everything else goes club route. Well, now you're divvying up, and we've talked about this. I mean, there's already disparity there with, an Ohio State that has what I think it's 36 Division I programs that it's supporting versus a Florida that has 18. I mean, it's literally double that the resources are being spread out against. Well, this is going to be even more so if, like, a Penn State tries to retain 31 varsity sports, and now you have a school that's like, nope, we just have the 5 on our end. Well, if you're splitting, and we're throwing the $22 million figure around, but let's just, for the purposes of the discussion, this $22 million now is getting divided up by whatever it would be, 150 athletes, while your $22 million is being divvied up among 700 athletes. Well, that's a pretty wide disparity in terms of football and basketball and where these folks are going to go. And again, all of these schools are going to have the option, as they've always had, to, we're not doing varsity sports and anything other than what we're legally required to allow football and basketball to continue. And I suspect that would be, 3 or 4 women's sports for the Title IX component. And I don't even know, there may be ways around that now with the, I don't know how all of this ultimately shakes out. All right, we're going to take a final break here. We'll be back to wrap up shop for a Tuesday. You're listening to the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show. We are at Quaker Steak and Lube, where the all-you-can-eat wing buffet is, about 20 minutes away. So get on down here and get ready to enjoy, and we're coming right back.
Coast into fall with a new Kia from Lion Country Kia. Right now, get a 24 Kia Seltos for 5.25% APR for up to 48 months. A new Sportage plug-in hybrid at 0.9% APR. Check out our 23 Sorento hybrid for as low as 4.5% APR. And don't forget, all 2023 and 2024 Kias come with a 10-year, 100,000-mile limited warranty. Stop in and meet with one of our sales experts today and coast into fall at Lion Country Kia. We want to see you in a Kia.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Get our Best Wings USA, signature sauces, mouth-watering appetizers, or any of our delicious award-winning lube favorites.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
The Center Hall Farm Store has been serving Center County and beyond for well over a half-century. A small family business, the Center Hall Farm Store specializes in animal nutrition and manufactures its feed fresh using local ingredients. Get the best in horse, cow, pig, chicken, and bird feeds. If you're not already a customer, stop in and see why so many of your neighbors are. The Center Hall Farm Store at 110 West Allison Street in Center Hall, or call us at 814-364-1393.
A lot has changed about State College. One thing that hasn't is W.C. Clark's Coffee Roasters on 234 East Calder Way. 30 different varieties of specialty coffee beans sourced from over 25 countries and roasted with love each morning in Happy Valley for over 45 years. They'll ship their fresh roasted coffee from their doorstep to yours. Order online at statecollegecoffee.com. That's statecollegecoffee.com.
2 of the top names in local printing have combined to serve you better. King Printing and State College has merged with theprinters.com, forming one of the 400 largest printers in America. Combining traditional offset printing and digital workflow techniques, theprinters.com can print, assemble, package, and ship to anywhere in the world, all with the same high quality customers have known and trusted for over 50 years. Buy local and save. Get started today at theprinters.com.
Ready to be part of something bigger? Come pave the road to success at Glen O'Habaker and discover a career where your hard work and determination can build a bigger, better future. Our team believes we can build a stronger future together. Join us at Glen O'Habaker, where we value teamwork on the field and on the job. Go to GOHcareers.com to apply. GOHcareers.com. And best of luck to all the Center County sports teams all season long from everyone at Glen O'Habaker.
With a Timber Kids savings account, you can start to save money, earn prizes, and teach your kids the value of savings. It's easy as 1, 2, 3. Building futures is what we do at TFCU.
You really need to belong to a credit union. You belong at TFCU. Timberland Federal Credit Union, a credit union you can grow with.
WFXS, once again.
Your sports radio. Broadcasting live, loud and proud from Central PA's Sports Authority. WFXS America. 98.7 The Fox. State College. The Goon and Ironhead.
And we welcome you back in for one final segment here on a Tuesday afternoon. Chris Buchignani filling in for the Dear Goon, who is on vacay this week and undoubtedly enjoying himself. And Booch will be back in with us on Thursday as well. Penn State, Kent State again, 3:30, Beaver Stadium Saturday, and then the Nittany Lions begin the Big Ten portion of their schedule with a night game. It'll be either 7 or 7:30, and network to be announced as well. Saturday night is when we'll get the confirmation and all that. Feels like it'll be, certainly if Illinois beats Nebraska, and I'm going to assume the Penn State win here, then that's going to be an NBC game. I think that's guaranteed if that scenario plays out. Sure. I think it's very likely, regardless of how Illinois and Nebraska fare, that's my expectation anyway. But we'll find out Saturday night. All right, let's turn back to the NFL and the Philadelphia Eagles. Booch, again, an opportunity I think missed, fair to say, with the Falcons game.
Impossible not to say it that way.
Last night, but it's week 2 of the NFL season.
Very true.
If you're going to let one slip away, I'm just saying this is the time of year to do it. Plenty of time to make that one up and then some, and to try to learn from the experiences on both sides of the ball. I heard you talking a little bit on the way in on the late lunch program with Jim Galanti when you had him on, but my take on it was this: with no dog in the fight, I don't mind, and this is kind of my philosophy as well with kind of coaching across the board is, if you are going to be over aggressive, do it early in a game, early in a season. And I'm okay with that. I'm like, Lip, you're kind of setting the mindset that you want your team to have, that, man, we're going to go for it. We're going to go big. We're going to try to surprise our opponents with what we're doing. And if it works, it's like, man, nobody saw that coming. How did you do that? And the play was there. I mean, in fairness,
it was there.
And Saquon does make that catch, what percentage of the time? 95% anyway.
All the time. Every competent NFL football player, plenty of practice squad scrubs, make that catch 99 times out of 100.
And if he makes it, then you are putting the game away. Again, I get that you're coming close to doing it if you run the timeout and take the points and all of that. But this was a chance to actually put the game away. Yeah. I tend to be I favor aggression anyway in my contact sports. So again, one thing, if this call is made and it's the Super Bowl or even a playoff game that time of the year, and you have the history that you were talking about and all of that. For me, week 2, I'm much more okay with that call in week 2, where it's like, hey, we're trying to build an aggressive mindset. I want the players buying into it. Man, we're going for it. We're not just trying to play it safe here. I'm okay with that myself. Now, easy for me to say. I'm not sure I'd be as okay with it if it was the Steelers that I was watching do and it played out the exact same way last night. I'm not sure that I'm of the same mindset, but I think I am, because I really do. I think if you're going to be overly aggressive, do it early in a game, early in the season, and depending on the results and what you feel from it, again, then adjust accordingly. My takeaway.
Yeah, I mean, fair. I understand favoring aggression and risk taking. As you know, we really enjoyed football in the old era where we just grind it out and just like basically smother your opponent into submission with controlling the clock. So I would have been fine and probably would have favored just run the ball. But to the point about aggression, I think the very good follow-up point has been if you were aggressive enough to run the risk of an incompletion on third down, how are you suddenly so timid to kick the field goal instead of trying to pick it up on fourth down? So at least be consistent. And I guess the concern for Philly is that all of the question marks that were left hanging at the end of last season, the competency of Nick Sirianni to continue on as the head coach, the playmaking ability of the new players who were brought in, the suspect nature of some of the aging veterans on defense, all of those reared their ugly head again last night. And so to your point about it being early in the season, the one silver lining I will find here, Ironhead, is now the Eagles have an opportunity early on to either emphatically put that to bed or let it linger to the point that they can let all of us know very early in the year that we don't need to keep staying up late to watch these games. You know, I actually don't mind a gut check moment in week 2 versus, week 9 or week 10 like we had last season.
Yeah, it's again, we're 2 weeks in and everybody is overreacting. We're 3 weeks into the college season and everybody's overreacting, I think, including me, by the way. After those first 2 weeks, I was ready to write off Oregon as being a legit contender for the Big Ten. I'm still not on board that they're definitively there, but yeah, that performance against Oregon State is more what I thought that Oregon team would look like. And it did look in that game. And again, I don't know, maybe Oregon State's defensive line is just really down. The biggest problem area from what I saw with Oregon and reading the accounts from out there was that offensive line, and that the offensive line for Oregon looked formidable against Oregon State. Yep. Now, I don't know if you can rectify a problem area in one really good week of practice, but certainly trending in the right direction. And we'll find out again in a couple of weeks for sure where they're at. I know the USC-Michigan game is going to get a lot of attention, and rightfully so. You have two storied programs meeting for the first time in a storied venue, albeit a god-awful venue at that. But I don't think that's going to be the game that and at the start of the season, I thought it was going to be a very good game because Michigan looks like I kind of thought they would.
Yep.
USC has looked much better, and I thought they were kind of the wild card to me coming into the season, and they're still a little bit. Again, I've been impressed with them so far, but I'm not sure really where they're at just yet, especially defensively. And I'm curious to see how this game plays out, but I don't go into it with the excitement that you would think a Michigan-USC game would draw, just because I think USC is a better team.
Sure.
And even on the road, I just think they'll ultimately take care of business.
Yeah,
now,
Michigan
maybe
really let the air out of the balloon with the way they looked against Texas 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and it wasn't – I mean, they just got dominated.
Yes.
Like, it wasn't – sometimes you can, hey, man, this team hit a couple of big plays, and I mean, Texas did that too. Yeah. But they dominated every which way.
Yeah, the thing that really struck you about that game is it looked like Texas came in, and I said this about Penn State, West Virginia, when you've got a massive talent disparity, what you want to see is that the better team is so dialed in that they just dictate to the opponent the terms on which the game is going to be played, and that Texas did that to defending national champion Michigan. I understand all the caveats about Harbaugh leaving and the players being gone, but they're in their building, and Texas rolls in there and basically just says, this is the way this game is going to be played.
Yeah.
And there was nothing Michigan could do about it for 4 quarters.
No doubt about it. All right, we're going to wrap things up here from Quaker Steak and Lube. Again, we are eternally grateful that Quaker Steak and Lube allows us to be here every Tuesday and Thursday We have a great time. They have the best staff, best food, best beverages in the area, and you get to sit around and watch sports here. It is a wonderful place to come on down and watch your college or NFL action, along with all of the other sports. If you have a baseball team that's getting ready for the playoffs, that must be fun. You can come down and watch those games as well. And again, we are very, very grateful to Jeff Byers and company for the opportunity to be here at Quaker Steak and Lube, and the all-you-can-eat wing buffet is getting underway in mere moments. So come on down and enjoy that. Folks, good luck to the Penn State men's soccer team tonight. Again, 6 o'clock kickoff at Jeffrey Field against Ohio State, and we will be ready to talk about the women's volleyball big victory at Pitt on Wednesday night, when next we get together on Thursday for another edition of the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show right here on Sports Radio 98.7 The Fox. Until then, be good and be safe, and stay tuned. Jed Donahue is coming up.
Coast into fall with a new Kia from Lion Country Kia. Right now, get a 24 Kia Seltos for 5.25% APR for up to 48 months. A new Sportage plug-in hybrid at 0.9% APR. Check out our 23 Sorento hybrid for as low as 4.5% APR. And don't forget, all 2023 and 2024 Kias come with a 10-year, 100,000-mile limited warranty. Stop in and meet with one of our sales experts today and coast into fall at Lion Country Kia. We want to see you in a Kia.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great time, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Get our Best Wings USA, signature sauces, mouth-watering appetizers, or any of our delicious award-winning lube favorites.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
The Center Hall Farm Store has been serving Center County and beyond for well over a half-century. A small family business, the Center Hall Farm Store specializes in animal nutrition and manufactures its feed fresh using local ingredients. Get the best in horse, cow, pig, chicken, and bird feeds. If you're not already a customer, stop in and see why so many of your neighbors are. The Center Hall Farm Store at 110 West Allison Street in Center Hall, or call us at 814-364-1393.
A lot has changed about State College. One thing that hasn't is W.C. Clark's Coffee Roasters on 234 East Calder Way. 30 different varieties of specialty coffee beans sourced from over 25 countries and roasted with love each morning in Happy Valley for over 45 years. They'll ship their fresh roasted coffee from their doorstep to yours. Order online at statecollegecoffee.com. That's statecollegecoffee.com.
Two of the top names in local printing have combined to serve you better. King Printing of State College has merged with theprinters.com, forming one of the 400 largest printers in America. Combining traditional offset printing and digital workflow techniques, theprinters.com can print, assemble, package, and ship to anywhere in the world, all with the same high quality customers have known and trusted for over 50 years. Buy local and save. Get started today at theprinters.com.
Ready to be part of something bigger? Come pave the road to success at Glen O'Habaker and discover a career where your hard work and determination can build a bigger, better future. Our team believes we can build a stronger future together. Join us at Glen O'Habaker, where we value teamwork on the field and on the job. Go to GOHcareers.com to apply. GOHcareers.com. And best of luck to all the Center County sports teams all season long from everyone at Glen O'Habaker.
With a Timber Kids savings account, you can start to save money, earn prizes, and teach your kids the value of savings. It's easy as 1, 2, 3. Building futures is what we do at TFCU.